I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Andrew Benson. Here. Ruth Groff. Here. Bronwyn Losing. Here. Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. Can you hear me okay out there? Everybody's good? Good. Can you hear me okay there, CJ, Marielle?
Yep, you're
Okay.
okay.
Is Guy going to join us a little bit later?
He is planning to join. He's planning to zoom in.
All right, well, we will move forward. So this is item 4 in the packet, public hearing on proposed local law number 5, 2022, video conferencing law. Someone like to make a motion to open it?
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Okay.
Second. Is it you, Ruth?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And you want to tell people what this is about? While we're in it?
Well, it's right in front of you. If you should read this, if they want to. So it was my understanding that the executive order got extended, I think, to July 14th. So this is for our adopting, approving of the, should I say, rules and regs for video conferencing. What is eligible, what is not eligible, who can, who can't. Some people, you know, you have under circumstances for voting members, but you still have to have a quorum, as far as this goes. And if nowadays I can see some of this might be a consideration, i.e., you know, but on the other hand, there's other stuff that is not. Now, I'm gonna date myself in the old days, as long as you had a quorum, you moved on, and have to worry about that. But I also respect the attitude that we're in a different era now, and these things hopefully will continue to become disruptive, not as destructive. And if that's the case, we also have to make adjustments. But I think if there's a small window, what you qualify for that. I do recall the West Virginia Senator, Senator Byrd, I think, I'm sure someone who listened correctly, they actually wheeled him into the Senate to vote on a stretcher. You recall that, right? Because he needed the vote. They also have a law now, I guess, the Byrd law, because one time it was rumored that Mr. Byrd used to hold out until he got more stuff for West Virginia. They were actually named Byrd governors. And you had to give him something. I'm not accusing anybody, but that's what the rumor was, that you had to negotiate as they normally do in bills, take that stuff to them. And so I think that's how that works. It would be nice to have a line out of veto. Like, so we have, or just vote on something this, that. Right?
I have trouble hearing you.
Talk to the,
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat that. 'Cause it wasn't.
Particular.
I'm trying to stress out the show. You hear me now, okay?
I can. So we should double
So maybe
check.
the math.
We should double check to make sure nobody here, nobody online wants to speak with this hearing.
We're gonna get to that in a minute. Is it taping?
Yes.
yes,
Okay, so obviously with the
Yes,
open,
yes.
open hearing here, anybody can speak on this matter. I didn't see anybody rush to the table. Which is okay, just by offering that invitation, if you want to speak on this matter. That's what we have these for. CJ, is there anybody in the waiting room for this?
There's not actually any participants waiting in the waiting room.
Well, I suspect I've eaten up a minute of my time. I'm not get back, because I think we basically qualified. Now, this will be interesting. Who would like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll second it.
Ooh, that was it. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll move resolution 5.
Okay. Wait for Mrs.
The resolution for local law 5. You didn't say what it was for. I just want to make sure we're clear on it.
Yes.
So Joe, you're going to move it, and who's the second?
Actually, Andrew.
Okay. Andrew Benson. Yes. Ruth Groff.
Yes.
Bronwyn Mosey.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Let's move on to item number 6, presentation of Yellow Barn Solar Update, CS Energy, Mitch Farm. And so,
Evening, everybody.
good evening.
So Debbie, I know I was struggling with the files that I was trying to send you. So I don't know if the smaller file came through, but I have some hard copies.
Okay.
Have some of these.
This is a big file.
Yes.
Now, is this confidential or?
No,
Thank you.
this is available and will be available on our product website as well. It's preliminary, but it's and there's, yeah, I do think this file was smaller. It's just-
Yes, that's- Yes. I was able to email that one out to the town board, the big
Oh,
one.
great.
I
Okay.
did email it to the town board. I just couldn't get it in this packet of stuff. It wouldn't.
Yeah, going forward, I've talked to my engineers about making sure it's optimized for future layout, so that it's a little bit. So, apologies for that. So, yeah, a pleasure to see everybody again. Last time we were here, I believe was August, or maybe July of last year. At that point, you know, we had been preparing to bid the project, the Yellow Barn Solar Project, which is a 160 megawatt solar project. We were preparing to bid that into the service annual RFP process. We had been expecting, and I think we shared at that meeting, you know, we've been expecting that we would be successful with the bid. We were expecting to hear from that service sometime in December. And we were expecting to, you know, enter into the public engagement process as part of the ORS process. Heard about that board. As these things go, that announcement did not come until just a couple weeks ago. And so we're now trying to kick that process off in earnest. As we, you know, wait for my service board a little bit here. We're very excited to receive the award, and you know, we feel very, very good about the project that we have presented. Not much has changed from the last time we spoke. We have gotten a little bit more detail in terms of the land that we expect to be using, and you know, what the project might actually look like. You know, last time we were here, we had I think a rough map of the parcels that we thought might be involved, but we didn't show where on the parcel panels might be, and we didn't have a real clear sense of exactly how many acres were going to be involved. So the layout that you guys have now in front of you is our current, you know, best preliminary plan. It's based on you know, landowners that we have contracted with the project. It's based on, you know, some of them have restrictions. You know, there's portions of the fields that landowners want to keep in woodlot, portions of parcels that landowners want to keep in agriculture. So you'll see on the layout there's some dark hat areas. Those are the areas that we're avoiding for those reasons. And there's also, you know, all other blank spaces. Most of those are due to wetland concerns. So we have finished our actual on-site delineation, but we did have a consultant review, you know, the aerial data and the soil data that's publicly available, and kind of give us a good estimate of where they think the boundaries might be. So that's what this layout is based on. Our wetland scientists are in the field right times, but from the data we can get back so far, it's been fairly consistent with the most sensitive data that we have. So we're not expecting much of a surprise, which is great. So from here, like I talked about last year, our goal is to get into the detailed permitting process for this project. Because of the size of the project, we do have to go through the state permitting process. And so that's going to be fairly involved and fairly intense. And the first step of that, as I believe I've emailed with CJ and Ed and others about, is what's called a local agency coordination meeting. So it's a meeting in which we sit with the chief executive of the town and any other representatives of agencies that they deem appropriate. We review the ORS process, we review the information we have on the project at hand, and then we start to talk about plans for public engagement and how the project will interact with the local law, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of nitty-gritty that gets covered in that meeting. But that'll kind of kick off our ability to start hosting more in-depth public information sessions, public hearings. Obviously with this project, because it is located in both towns of Lansing and Groton, we have been coordinating with both towns. So I actually was in attendance at the Groton Town Board meeting yesterday evening and spoke with them about the same local agency coordinator meeting. And they indicated that they would be reaching out to the Lansing Town Board. I believe the supervisor was going to reach out to the supervisor here at Lansing to set up a potentially one-on-one discussion prior to our local agency coordination meeting. Because we are hopeful that we have that meeting jointly with both towns representatives at the same meeting, so that one town is potentially hearing one thing from another. So that's our goal. That's our next step. In terms of long term, we're hoping to have our application package ready to submit to the state sometime around the end of the year, beginning of next. So we have a good amount of time here to solicit feedback from the neighbors and planning boards in town. And then that process can take up to or slightly more than a year. So we're hoping to be under construction sometime in the year 2024. And we're operational before the end of the year 2026. So that's a high level. It's ran through a bunch of different stuff. So I'll stop there and answer your questions for what I have, or happy to clarify anything.
I actually have a question. I'm new to the board, so I was not here last year when you gave this presentation, and this is actually the first I've heard of it. Could you just, in a very brief overview, give me what this project is and what the population is it's going to serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Yellow Barn Solar Project is a 160 megawatt solar photovoltaic system. We're going to be tying into the 115 kilovolt circuit that runs out of the old funds at the plant. We'll be generating wholesale electricity, so we'll be selling into the power grid the same way that any power plant would. So all New York ratepayers will be able to access the electricity that we're generating. We anticipate the project will be generating enough electricity to power approximately 30,000 New York homes every year. It's in terms of size, land-wise, the fence line being shown on this layout here is approximately 800 acres. That might tweak slightly up or down, but generally speaking, it's going to be less than 1,000 acres, and about 25% of it is in the town of Lansing, and approximately 75% is in the town of Groton.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sure, I've got a kind of concern that I got this map this afternoon. So this is the first time I've actually seen where you're talking about doing it. And it looks like you're going to run a bunch of your cables through the unique natural area of Bear Swamp. And I'm wondering what kind of protection you're going to do for this unique natural area.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a piece that our wetland scientists are looking to delineate the exact boundaries of that area now. My hope is that we'll be able to find a good technical solution in working with DEC and town at ORIS. I know that there are options plans out there. One that comes to mind is, directional drilling. We could bore our line under that swamp without having to cut through soil or impact the soil within the swamp itself. I'm, not an engineer, so I don't know off the top of my head if that's going to work or be technically feasible, but I know that there are solutions that we can find to, either go under or, with the impact possible.
I'm confused, the county's already delineated the boundaries of that unique natural area. Why are you having to redo that?
So we need to perform a wetland delineation for the entire project area. That's part of the process, no matter what. So there are delineated wetlands there. We need to perform a delineation as part of the regulations.
Well, this is different than wetlands. This is a unique natural area. That means that it's got flora and fauna that are unique to the area, grow there, are able to live there in that area and not in others. And so I'm really concerned about a major construction project happening around it. And so.
Yeah, apologies, I was conflating kind of the two things there. But yeah, absolutely, and reviewing that and mitigating whatever impacts may come out of site nearby is something we have this 6 to 8 months before our application submission to try to find a good solution.
Well, I personally like to be kept up on that because I'm very concerned about that unique natural area. It's not just nearby. From what I'm reading on your map, you're planning on running cables back and forth all across it. And I have trouble seeing how you can do that and not really do a great deal of damage to an important area in our community.
Okay. Yeah, no, I absolutely plan to keep all around town board and other residents apprised of our design and application process. We're going to find solutions to this is one of many issues that we're going to have to work through. We by no means are finding certain this is a zero impact project, and so we're seeking to find the best way to mitigate, minimize, and avoid any impacts as we can.
So I was reading over your community engagement plan, and on page 13, it says that you've been having continuous outreach to the town boards. And like you said, you haven't been here since August, so I'm wondering why you put continuous there. And the other thing that confuses me is it says that the duration, the start date is fall of 2020, the duration is 2 years. So it's saying here that you're going to stop this fall.
So to be clear, the community engagement plan was written in 2021 when we were submitting that plan as part of the bid. So we were expecting to be much further along in the process. Like I said, we were expecting to kind of have kicked what we're doing off. What we're doing right now, we're expecting to kick that off in January or December of last year. That being said, that 2 year plug in there is not meant to put a deadline on when we're going to stop outreach. We're really just trying to give a broad spectrum sense of sort of the order of operation, which we're going to track.
So is that going to be updated at all, or are you just going to kind of wing it?
We absolutely can update the plan. The community engagement plan as submitted to my survey, like I said, was back in August, but it is going to be available on our project website. So I think we need to update, make sure that it's now that there's been this sort of extended delay, revising it, I think is the appropriate response.
So it says continuous. What do you mean by continuous work with the town board? It certainly hasn't been continuous up to this day.
Yeah, and that's my apologies for that. We've been in a bit of an awkward situation because we expected to have more information to come back to the town board with than we had. So I don't have a great excuse for that. I think it's just my sort of personal shortcoming with that respect. Hoping to correct it going forward.
Do any other board members have questions? And I'll circle back to you. Joe?
Okay.
Okay, Ruth?
No.
Andrew? Okay. Well, I guess continuous would be subjective, especially during a play. Especially during the applications for the survey grants, amongst other things. I'm not going to be hung up on those type of work. I am kind of concerned though with the unique areas, who's the governing body that gives you the final thumbs up or thumbs down for mitigating impacts to the unique areas, the wetlands and such. You work with the DEC on that?
So we do work with the DEC, the final governing body for our overarching permit, will be through the Office of the Legislature. But there are a variety of agencies that participate in that process to, ensure that all of the, because the Office of the Legislature doesn't necessarily know what all the impact is going to be. The agencies such as, State Recreation Office, the DEC, Department of Markets, they're all heavily involved in finding and finding acceptable mitigations for.
So one more comment is that this ongoing conversation, sometimes these ongoing conversations are 6 months apart, a year apart, whatever. These ongoing conversations, if any of the board members have questions for either your state or whoever, if you could just let us see them going back and forth, so the whole board is included in these comments, if you have any.
Sure.
I think that would be, in my opinion, very productive, but also would move forward, because quite frankly, and I thank you very much for coming in today. We don't have much to say. And we quite realistic, but you've been very gracious to us to come in. Because like I said, ever since this went to a 94C, I think we did some straight out, right? Is that it changes all the time, is that we have less and less input on it. But I do thank you for doing that and keeping us in conversation. Because I know you are receptive to any type of concerns we have and try to address them. I'll circle back to Joe, because he's chomping up a bit here.
I'm being patient, and I just figured I handed out a copy of the map that shows where the designated wetlands and where the natural areas are within the general scope of your project. And I gave one to you, Ed, too, as well.
No, this is all useful information with that. Go back and forth,
Yeah.
but you may not have been aware of this. I mean, let's face it, you don't get the grant.
No,
We'll see you next year, right? I mean, we are, so.
we were aware of the Bear Swamp area, and we knew that, it was considered where county law that. But, to be frank, I hadn't done the analysis of, because we still haven't really reached the design stage, in terms of how we're going to run our lines, whether we're going to directional board, what things are going to be underground versus not. I haven't thought too deeply about it.
Well, perhaps you could give us updates periodically as far as this goes, as far as what the progress is on this board.
So to speak to that really briefly, so we now have a project website online. We'll share it with that with the town board. If you guys want to post on the town website, obviously that would be a great way to have it out there for people. Our goal going forward, now that we kind of entered this, call it more serious process now that the contract has been awarded. Our goal is to establish a contact list of folks that want to receive updates about the project, whether it be the town board, whether it be local residents, whether it be just kind of curious citizens, and to send out monthly updates of what the study we're performing, what design updates have been made, what feedback we're receiving, also keep people up to date on scheduled public information sessions, scheduled public hearings, etc. Try to target the players so that we don't run into exactly what Joe you're talking about, where it's been months since we've been around, and there hasn't been a lot of update. At least if a few months go out with an update that says, hey, not much to report, at least people know that that's been going on. So yeah, that's our goal forward. We're just to say that it's taking us as long to get there. But
Okay. On page 12 of your report, it talks about stakeholders, and what concerns me is neighboring property holders are not listed anywhere on your stakeholder list. And you've got Cornell University, but you don't have the folks who are right next to your project. And I'm wondering why they were left off the stakeholder list.
so they were left off of that list by name because we didn't want to necessarily put the names of people that were going to be nearby the project out on the plan. we do feel very strongly about neighbor outreach. We actually spent the part of the day knocking on doors and introducing ourselves to probably not that's the worst day. And there's probably 30 or 40 neighbors that are going to be either adjacent to or have a view of some portion of this field. So that's a process that's ongoing. And something we absolutely feel very strongly about that's a critical process. So
I'm confused. I mean, you aren't listing, individual names on any of these. You're not saying, you say town of Lansing, you're not saying, Ed and Steve. So why couldn't it have on here, neighbors, and we're gonna, contact them, and that sort of thing, because I think that's a really important stakeholder, and I feel it says something and not have it on this list.
I agree with you. It's an omission, not of intent, but of what's that?
And on page 19, I was confused that you have a sentence here, CS Energy staff regularly attend town board and planning board meetings in the town of Easton and Mohawk through 2019 and 2020, and I'm not sure what you're trying to say there.
So that's just part of what I sort of wanted to see in our community plan was evidence of previous public meeting process for other projects.
Okay.
So there were 2 projects each in the town of Easton and Mohawk, smaller than this one, but similar scale that we were just referencing.
So when you say regularly attended, did you show up to every meeting, every other meeting?
For a period of about 6 to 8 months in the sort of peak of the funding process, I was at probably every Mohawk planning board meeting and a good chunk of the town board meeting. The Mohawk projects were monitored.
Okay.
If I can make a suggestion, because this was a courtesy that you gave us, is that perhaps we can continue this dialogue, questions and answers, put it on the website so people can see them. And this is going to be ongoing.
It is on the go, but these are absolutely great questions, and we're here to answer as much as we can. That's part of our intent here, right? So I think Joe's got great questions, and every time we've been, it's had very insightful questions. So happy to answer them, but also be respectful of more time.
Well, the nice thing too is that when you have these answers back and forth, we have a public record right there, so you can see it. I'm not implying playing gotcha here or the else, on the contrary. But on the other hand, the allocation was 15 minutes here. We had another gentleman waiting patiently. And like I said, this is going to be an ongoing type of thing. And to have this back and forth, I think is fantastic. Because quite frankly, we're all in uncharted water.
Yeah, we absolutely are. And so maybe for us, the next step, it sounds like, there's a lot of feedback. Joe, you have a meeting, I want to hear more about that. We'd love to, post revision to that for our website so that, kind of reflects the new status of the project and its update. So, perhaps we can, like I suggested, have some email correspondence with the board on CC and try to get some of those questions answered, prior to the next public meeting.
Do you have all the board members' emails? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure that I do, but I'm sure that I can.
Yeah, I would like to continue this dialogue, and I'm very concerned about that unique natural area, so I want real updates on that. So that's a real concern of mine. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, comments? For our key attendees here? Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you all for the time.
Thanks for having us. Item 7 in our packet is the privilege of the floor. There is documented here what the rules and regs are for the floor. And I have one person who has written down so far. I don't see anybody else who has attended now has written down. So I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. I apologize in advance. Is it Mezzi?
Mezzi.
Oh my goodness.
You got it right.
The clock is right twice there.
I've been following along first, so it's okay.
Hi,
I'm good to go.
you are good to go.
Awesome, great. Well, first, thank you for having me. Appreciate the time. I'll keep this brief. I know that's 3 minutes. My name is Greg Messi. I'm resident of Dryden, but I also am representing Greenwood Holdings LLC, which is the property owner, and Greenwood Management Incorporated as president of that operator of Lansing Harbor, which is 2644 Marina Road. The old Finger Lakes Spring Service or Fords, depending of what generation in the area you are. We recently went through rebranding and changed our name. So I'm here today to request a waiver under local law section 174-27 for a mass gathering permit and for the fees associated with that mass gathering. This is a conversation that's been going on since March with the planning department. One, I'd like to just first call out Scott and what an incredible asset he is to the town of Lansing. He's the code enforcement officer who's been an absolute joy to work with. I've worked with many in other municipalities, and you can't always say that. So I appreciate his efforts there. But we are hosting for our voters within the arena 11 different dates of concerts, essentially bands that we've hired to play. Last July 3rd, we had a band play for our member voters, and there was maybe 25 to 50 people there. It was just intended to sort of be like, I came from the hotel business, so I refer to it as music in the lobby, right? Just something to sort of activate the space, make it an exciting place to be. Again, we're trying to elevate that area, we're trying to enhance that area, we're trying to improve that. And part of that is making sure that the voter experience and that our offerings to the voters is a lot more than just a pretty view, right? We're trying to create a real sense of community down there. And that was the intent of our concert series, as we sort of defined it. We use Facebook as a method to communicate with our voters. Our emails are precious, so we really reserve email communication with our voters to a limited amount. It was brought to us that we may need a mass gathering permit for this. I had submitted some information. I had said that our expected attendance was below, which I fully believe that our expected attendance for the specific events will be below the 200 person threshold. But wanted to come to you today because the town code enforcement officer has requested that we file 3 individual permits for the 3 different bands we have over the July 4th weekend. The fees associated with that are $600. It's 200, 200, and 200. And it has the potential to be up to $2,200 in total fees, which is a lot. And I would ask that you consider that and also consider the need for us to have this permit. And I know that's my time, but if there's any opportunity for you to look at that or ask questions, I would be open to that as well.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8 in our packet, department reports. First one is 8A, Lansing Community Library. And then B is the youth service. And we move on to park and recreation. We have that Gerald.
Because Debbie's giving me the eye, I'm gonna say unless anyone has any questions. I will just point out one thing quickly. We are working and finally have finalized the August 13th fundraiser for Lansing Lunchbox in conjunction with St. George's Church. And we hope this is going to be a very well received benefit concert.
Good. Lansing Community Council gave them some money else.
Yes, Lansing Community Council helped out graciously with some 501c3 information that helped us out. Yes.
The infamous 501c.
Yes.
I know there's so many OCs out there. Any questions or comments for our park and rec director?
It's just a joy to see the ball fields full of people every summer when I go by. It's, I love to see them. It's going to help. It takes a lot of work behind the scenes to get that all organized. I really appreciate the work.
Yeah. No, it's very nice to have everything almost back to full strength since COVID.
So anyone else? Being back to full strength, we're right on schedule for all the pipe leaks and breakdowns and clogs at the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Things, and whatever items thought they could flush down, didn't quite make it, or the pipes that break, so.
Yes,
the,
we've had several of those.
Yes, and the reason I'm leading up to this is that how critical it is to get this renovation done. And when people are concerned about there won't be any more circle around there, it's my understanding that there will be the circle allowed when you have events.
Correct.
So once again, let's fill in the gaps of what ifs with the truth. And this is what the truth is, and people were concerned about that, especially when there was an event there the other couple weeks ago. They said, OMG, this circle won't be here anymore. I'm gonna have to walk X amount of miles to do this, whatever. And that's not the case. The case is that for special events, you will be allowed to enter and go to that area.
Correct.
Another bit of information as we keep setting this down. But these bathrooms are just, how much pain do you want to inflict on the group?
It's very
And-
old infrastructure.
So let's see now,
Put it
you
that way.
had, that Friday, you had 6 people, 3 in the hole. You had Bolton Point there, you had the snake, we hope we find the snake, hope we hope it's break through the pipe, because we're trying to find a leak is, right?
Yeah,
But
that's,
you, and I'm learning so much about plumbing and that you can't find these leaks that you can nowadays with Bolton Port meters and everything. Within 30 seconds, I'll tell you if you have a break.
yes, it's very nice that they can alert us to our water usage.
But these were put in before Noah, so that was basically a while ago. And having said that, I'm just reiterating why it's so critical to update this park after 50 years, 60 years.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Okay. I think it's over 50, but I think when we had the Harbor Fest one year, we actually had the celebration of 50 years.
Yeah.
So enough of that. Very fortunate to have the crew we have, because for a lot of municipalities, it's very difficult to find employees. And ours didn't want to stay.
Well, very thankful that all of our departments work very well together. So that helps greatly.
Okay. And thank you for putting on your other hat for tonight. In case
Until
CJ
somebody
wants to-
broke my camera.
In case CJ starts to list to one side. Okay, my friend. Moving on. Highway report, there's another all-star. Okay, my friend, here we go. What could possibly be happening with the highway?
Good evening, everybody. My reports, Debbie, would you help me out and get everyone?
Yes,
You're a
yes.
rock- You're a rock star. I was
Thank you.
late to the party on that. It's here for everybody to look at, any questions, have any answers. Moving along with the road maintenance. Prepping for hopefully blacktop. Prices of blacktop scared the heck out of me of late, as they just went up $10.50 a ton. So I was budgeting about $75 a ton, then went to $85 a ton, now I'm at probably $93.50 a ton. So we'll see where that leads us into August, which is where we plan to be. Today I talked with Angel at Soil and Water. Informed Pat that we got our permit to work down at Myers for the ice jam that caused a bunch of damage down there. So hopefully next week we'll be working down there and repairing that. So that's all where we're at.
Any questions, comments for our highway superintendent?
Sure, I'm wondering what's happening. We're supposed to get a report back on Snake Road and how much that.
Yep. Still waiting with the other engineering firm. To be honest, I reached out to PT Miller and, it's kind of out of my hands. As soon as that company or that engineering firm gets back with Don and Dave, I will pass it along to the board. I know there's a lot of eager people. To be honest, there's a lot of misinformation out there. I choose not to respond to the misinformation. There's just no need. So. Yeah, as soon as I have something, I'll pass it on.
Okay, thank you. I also found it interesting when you repaved Salmon Creek Road. You could see where the high traffic areas were, because that's where the travel packed down faster than
The storm oil,
yeah.
yeah, when you got your, 20-foot of road and your tire mark, sure.
And so the section between Lockerbie and that road, that you just passed it, that gets used a lot more than the rest of Santa Cruz Road for some reason that I would not have predicted. It was kind of interesting to be able to see that on the ground before.
Okay, anything else? Might be on the road. Now you're doing 10, right? 4, 10.
410.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, CJ, you with us?
Yes, mostly.
So, Director of Planning Report, and she's being IB. Anyway, the reports are in front of you. Do we have any comments or questions for our Director of Planning? All right, I'll add something real quick. I've got compliments from people for our code officer. He's doing a phenomenal job, and he'll realize how much under the pressure he is, and hopefully we'll have a solution for that soon. But once again, we have a lot of things that have to be done in this town, and I'm very receptive to offering up the board solutions and see how they go about things. And there'll be some suggestions in the future. Hopefully there'll be some tonight, also in the future, as far as that goes. It's a busy place, and you can look at the supervisor report and see what they do. Steve and everything else. And that's exceptional considering that the primary source of funding is sales tax. One of the things CJ and I worked on was to get this more of a equitable type of fee schedule so that the larger projects would pay more of the project, not the same as the smaller projects. So because of that, I think we've been able to afford, for lack of a better word, good employees and additional employees. Going from a 30-hour part-time planner to 2 full-time planners, you see how busy they are, not to mention the other ones there. So enough of that. And CJ, if there's nothing else, we'll move on.
Yeah, and I would
Just
just
wanna-
echo Ed's comments that, Heather, Scott, and John are really the bedrock of the department. I could not do all that I do without them, and have nothing but really positive things to say about them. They take the brunt of the range of public concerns, which are extensive, to say the least. So nothing but great things to say about them and all the departments in town that support us, frankly, and make that possible. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. We have Debbie Munson, Town Clerk Report.
It's in your packet.
Okay,
If you have any questions,
you were away for the first 2 days, fluttering back at night too,
I was.
especially all the changes we had in our packet, right?
Yes,
And every time that there's a change, you have to pull out the website and put it back on afterwards.
it does, yeah. Because I can't work in Municode and make changes while it's on the website. Doesn't work well. It doesn't work at all. So.
So
Well.
in a perfect world, you would like to have all the suggested changes in by one.
Last week.
Yeah, honestly, by last week, because if you're gonna have this posted on Monday, which is, it has to be posted by a minimum of Tuesday by law. So we try really hard to get it on there Monday so the public can see it. And yet today I had to take it down for a considerable amount of time, so then the public's not able to see it. So really, we need to have everything all done by Friday so that Monday we can finalize whatever we need to finalize and get everything posted.
And you usually get the agenda out, I think like 2 weeks in advance. I'm sure. I normally see it.
Usually the agenda's out 2 weeks in advance. Sometimes I try to get it out sooner, at least so people can start giving feedback, but that's kind of the goal. And then to have as many resolutions as I have out, at least a week before the meeting. And, if there's something on the agenda that doesn't look right, people could speak up right away, then, we could take it off or add or whatever we need to do.
So food for thought, to your credit, you were gone, Jesse was gone. Ashley was gone, and so the
Yeah.
next person up was Shelby, and she slipped right in.
She did.
Jesse came in before this conference, set everything up for her, got me fired up. So Shelby could rock and roll, and then Jesse came back, you came back to shut it down.
Yeah, pretty much.
Need to borrow your magic wand sometime, okay?
I would like, I guess one thing to point out is the website. If anyone is having any trouble finding our documents, I'm not speaking for the whole website, but for our documents, if they're having any trouble. to-
Call
to-
Debbie.
To call. Call
Brown.
call
Any
Jess.
website concerns?
1-800 Brown.
It seems to be working pretty well, from what I've noticed, for what I have to do with it, and, you know, you really just go to the website and go to agendas and minutes or whatever it says and click on it and click and it pops it right up, so I think it's a little more convenient to find the documents, but if you hear of anybody having any trouble, just send them to our department.
It's not laser fiche. I'm really happy. It's so much easier. Yeah, I can pop these documents off really easily, whereas laser fiche, it was 4 windows open and,
Yeah,
you know, it's always, you know, looking at 1959 first and have to scroll down to the current document. That was just a nightmare. This is so much easier to work with.
If nothing else, we're gonna segue right into you. You got the helm now. This is Munson on the
oh,
consent
to the
agenda.
consent agenda, okay.
Yeah, imagine that. How'd that work out?
I don't know. Okay, so there's not much on the consent agenda, it looks like 4 items, so some people can read, not the whole resolution, but the, you know, the title of it, and then we'll do the motions and the vote and move on.
So if that's the case, Andrea, would you read A, please?
Motion authorizing bookkeeper to establish an annual general account for the board of Elections.
Brown, you do B.
Motion to allocate from DB 5112.400. Allocation will be reimbursed by Pave Our Potholes POP program.
Super. Okay. Ruth, you do C, please?
Resolution scheduling public hearing proposed local law number 6 of 2022 override tax levy limit.
Okay, Joe, you back clean up and do D.
Resolution approving audit and budget modifications. And I will move the consent agenda.
Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Ruth Croft,
Yes.
Brian Losey,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Okay, item 10. Motions and resolutions. This is a resolution authorizing the town supervisor to execute Myers Park project architectural design professional services agreement with MJ Engineering and Land Surveying. PC.
I'll move that resolution.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to hear just a little bit about how the public is going to get engaged in the design process in this.
We're probably ahead of ourselves there a little bit. Those are the public engagement portion of that just depends on, I mean, we've kind of done all of that before this, so that part is really done. There's gonna be probably not a whole lot of public engagement going forward with this particular project, this piece. This is the grant. We're just moving forward with that portion of the plan.
Which is the design of Myers, right?
Correct. Nothing else, Joe.
I understand.
Nothing else. I don't want any misinformation. This is only for 5 portions, and CJ can speak more of this of the grant that was submitted.
So it's not even all of Myers. It's
Correct.
5 specific ones.
Yes, yes.
So which portions are there? I'd like to understand that. Just people ask me questions. and I
Yeah,
like it.
no, I didn't bring any of my paperwork in here. I apologize that because of the camera, I was a little rushed, but it is the bathrooms by the campsite, bathrooms in the center, and CJ, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, tent campsites and parking, I believe are the and I may have missed one there, but kayak.
Yeah.
Kayak and canoe storage.
Do you remember the request for proposal that was issued? I guess it was authorized in May.
Yes.
Okay, no, I mean, town board.
Yes, these were the ones you were
Yes.
going over, and you had more than one proposal, did you like 4?
Or this is
Responses.
this is for this. We have
Right.
5. Yes, we had 5 proposals.
So this is bathroom, parking, and the
Kayak, canoe and kayak, launch storage, and the bath, 2 sets of bath
2 sets of bathrooms. Okay. that's what I
You said tent camps.
and 10 camps. Yes,
Okay.
10 campsites.
want.
Thank you, Deb.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
If none, Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Ruth Groff,
Yes.
Ron Ramosey,
Yes,
Joseph Wetmore,
Yeah,
Edward Levine.
Yes. Board member reports. Okay, I'm going to do this off.
Okay. Another lumber report for the packet, also Lansing Food Services. There is a fishing derby, which is coming up, I think it's Monday, 18th.
Saturday,
Saturday,
18th.
Sundays. And we're hoping for a good turnout. The programs this year have been exceptionally well. So as we get into summer, we also have some programs, but so does the rest department, and that sort of complements each other. I did attend the ag meeting with Joe. And that was sort of interesting. It wasn't super well attended, but still people there. Talking about, the ag district. And I did not attend the CDC. Unfortunately, with my knee replacement, some rats, I'm just not in good shape. Needed to do it. Apologize. I'm hoping a 1 more.
I am amazed you do as much as you do considering. But you always do. It's not one of many.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Ruth,
Okay, Ruth, really, she hits me. Okay, go ahead.
I respectfully ask the understanding of the board that I have no.
No need to ask, no need to ask. Okay. Brown?
I have been working with Heat Smart on doing the clean heating and cooling campaign. I know Ed and Pat both been involved in that a little bit. And there is going to be a webinar next Wednesday at 7. And there's info up on the town website about that. And that's the follow-up for the New York State grant that we are going to be able to get because of people signing up. So if anybody wants to learn about heating, cooling, that is the place to do it. I was able to attend the tour of Bell Station with the CAC and also help with some cleanup down there right before the open house. And apparently the open house was really well attended. And this might be in your report, the plan for curbing partying there. But the idea was that since there's no one who lives on Nut Ridge Road, there's no residences on there, that the town can just declare no parking from 9 at night to 5 in the morning. And then partying kids will not be as likely to walk a mile down Nut Ridge Road to get all the way there. So hopefully that will help resolve that problem.
We don't have any houses on that.
There's cottages at the very end, but not on the road proper. No.
They're making reference to the straight way from Lake View.
Lake Ridge.
Lake Ridge, thank you.
Yep.
So,
I know.
Lake Ridge, and then you take a left on Nut Ridge, and you go straight to the lake, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But at the end, you take a right, that's where Nut
Then
Ridge
there's-
goes into.
Yep. But that's a beautiful space and it's just amazing that it's public. It's so exciting. And I attended the ZBA last night and I have a liaison question for everybody. It was brought up that it takes staff a lot of time to print out the packets. And now that we're moving to a digital based format, some people prefer to look at them digitally, some people still want them printed. And there were different ideas thrown about at the meeting. Maybe we could give people paper and money for ink. Maybe we could buy them tablets. Maybe we could do all sorts of things. And I'm bringing back to us to discuss it. I had some ideas and I want to, bring it back to the ZBA to see what works for them, but wanted to bring it here to see if anybody has any thoughts.
Personally, I go to most of these meetings and all you see is tablets,
Mhm.
basically. I mean, they have a few copies there for courtesy and some of that. Well, they want to make notes on it.
Mhm.
But I think that's something else, so they could respond by saying, you want to have a copy now.
Mhm.
And then maybe for 2 or 3, just to have it in the public or whatever, that's up to their discretion. But, I'm seeing this massive paper, which I understand, do an excellent job. But, and I don't know how to deal with this yet myself,
Yeah.
because I don't know if I'm going to totally tablet or not. But, that's up to, I guess, each board to decide what their flavor is and go from there. That's just my 2 cents on the subject.
Mhm.
But you're absolutely right, Jennifer.
Mhm.
I guess I would comment that I would be open to increasing their stipend slightly with the understanding that they're responsible for a tablet, for printing out documents or something like that. So the town's covering that cost, saving ourselves a lot of labor in the meantime. But it's a small board, so we're not talking about a lot.
And then people who need paper would put it on paper. Each person could do what works best for them.
Right.
Just the old adage, if you do it for one, you have to do it for everybody. So whatever you decide to do, which is fine, and I'm sure it'll evolve into something.
Mhm.
No, thanks for bringing it up.
Yep. So I'll bring that back to them, kind of bring up that idea of just would that work, increasing the stipend, and then each person could do what works best for them and kind of see where it sounds and probably bring it back to you guys next month.
Could I just ask a question?
Yeah.
I know it's nothing really to do with me, but so are the individual people on the ZBA printing their stuff?
No, the planning department is printing out the packet for them and collating it and getting it to them.
Okay.
And they're the ones who said it just takes a ton of staff time that if we can find a way for people to do it individually or.
Okay, but I thought you were talking about increasing the stipend to pay the people on the ZBA to cover printing costs.
Right, so if we took it out of the planning,
Oh,
if the
okay.
planning
I
department,
understand.
right, and
Okay.
because of a lot of stuff is happening digitally now, the applications are submitted digitally, so they aren't even getting paper in the office, and so there's some people who are happy just to move to digital, but some people still want it in paper, and so that makes it even more complicated knowing who to print for, who not to, so
Okay.
just as we make that shift, figuring out what
And
would
they
work for best.
meet, 3-4 times a year, hopefully they don't have a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, it's standing monthly.
And it
but
doesn't
it
matter
doesn't-
if it was
yeah.
every month's report. Let me just share this with you, is that the board, we're looking
Mm-hmm.
into perhaps increasing the number of hours for help.
Okay.
So that may actually alleviate that, because I knew at one time, these planning board packets, oh my God, they choke a horse. But they, and they have to, at one time, they had to almost have them handed to them, delivered to them type of thing at the
Right.
time. So that may be it may work itself out. But once again, it's good discussion.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the lack of, I was unable to attend. I had my kids' end of year school play, but Joe was there, and I think we all got the list of priorities to look at from them. And as I look at things, the Blackcliff and the broadband didn't happen this month. And I'm wondering if shifting those to working groups, as we've been talking about, kind of how we look at the committee structure, and because they're working on a specific issue, And so thinking about that as a possible solution, I'd like to consider. And I think we should plan on putting on our agenda for next month, looking at that list of priorities and sorting them out among the board. And then I just had a question. I don't know who to put this towards, but I saw the note from the ethics board and wondering where are we on advertising for the position on the ethics board? Do you know, Debbie?
I'm supposed to be doing something with that.
Okay. Okay,
I'm going to, we're gonna advertise it like we advertise all the other things on our web.
Great.
And, but they're not meeting again until September, so I haven't gotten it done.
got it. Okay, so the plan is that they'll meet in September unless something urgent
Yes.
appears, but
Yeah, they were asking me for a date in September on the calendar.
got it.
So
Okay,
it's not set in stone yet, but that's
got it.
your plan.
Great. Thanks.
So is that September date when they're gonna work on questions the town board asked them to work on at our last meeting?
I'm sorry, what, John?
Is that meeting where they're gonna talk about some of the things we asked them to look into? We gave them a list of questions in our last meeting to look at.
I don't know what those lists of questions are.
Remember, they came to us with some concerns, and I'm trying to remember what they were specifically, and we asked them to give us.
Oh,
some-
I brought up about the, some concerns I had about the local law.
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
form and
yeah.
stuff. Yes, they're gonna start working on that in September. I forwarded all that information to them.
Okay, and then they wrote us and said they'd like to change the ethics disclosure form. I don't know what the process is for that. Is that something your office just does? Does the town board have to approve it? How does that work?
The ethics committee is gonna work on that, coordinating that disclosure form and the local law.
Okay.
They need to match each other and
Okay, but how does the process work? You just, after they give the suggestions, does your office do it, or does this town board have to approve the form?
I have no idea.
Guy?
We haven't called on you yet. I suspect we're gonna be warming up here soon, so.
Yeah, no, the town board would have to approve any changes to the form or the local law or the code. They're charged with our law, and based on the request at the last meeting, they're charged with providing advice to keep us up to date and ways to improve disclosure and ethics compliance. And that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna make a recommendation to the board, and the board can take it in part or leave it.
Thank you.
No.
Full of stuff.
Yeah, no.
Okay, Joe?
I get my report in the packet, but I do want to ask, we just bought ourselves a house up the road here. And I understand we're gonna tear it down, is my understanding, right?
We haven't discussed that yet.
Yep.
Right, we haven't discussed the possibilities of that. I suspect you're right, though.
I would like to see something like reuse or where the centers come in and strip it before it gets torn down. And I don't know how that process works, but if there's reusable parts on the house, I'd like to get them pulled out.
Isn't it? Yeah.
You can still pull parts off of it.
I don't know if Reuse does this, but there's been another person who reached out to me. I don't know how they do this stuff, but I was like, really, what did you say? I don't even look at like YouTube anymore. It's easy. But there are people that also do that.
Yes.
And this is like what Black Dog Bill or what it calls that show. I remember they have anyway, where they go into strip places. Fascinating. If I can remember the whole title. Black Dog. But anyways, there are people that actually do that, and they'll strip off part of it, whether for their own use, pay a stipend, or I don't know if we use other themselves. I think they're more receiving than they are the actual do it. But there might be people that actually do that. Maybe you pay them a stipend, maybe you don't. Maybe there's negotiations on how that happens. I don't know, but I'm sure we'll explore it and find out. But you're absolutely right. I agree with you. You change the level of it. If there's certain things that can be said.
There's a brand new screen door on the front. So the car doesn't get it.
Yeah, well,
If it makes it that far.
it's probably a newer screen. I don't know. I mean, there's some of these things you think, they're not very good, and yet people fight over them for cottages, and other places, they don't work to be winterized. who knows, but those are things we can explore. Sooner than later.
I know I really appreciated when I was renovating my house, being able to go and getting matching flooring from significant elements and could match the old flooring in my house exactly. And so there's things that are really valuable if you're the one that needs them, and having organizations that are willing to pull that stuff out of houses and store it and make it available, I think is a huge asset.
Well, perhaps we're, as we say, at the record spitballing here. One of the things is perhaps we ask for use, for instance, do you know of any names of people who do this? What do they do? What are their expertise? What are their costs? What is the whole scope of the job? Do we have to have insurance for that? Blah, 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 a little bit on that. And that's when we'll bring Guy into the conversation. When we discuss that, then might be at our next meeting. Move forward.
I know with lumber prices going up, the idea of disassembling houses is becoming more and more interesting to people.
Oh, no doubt. Okay. Speaking of which, like I said, so we should put that on our July agenda. I don't want to make this into a career. I want this thing to be gone.
I do too, but I would like to see it go on in an environmentally sensitive way and reusing as much of it as is feasible.
I'll reach out to reuse people.
Thank you.
See where I get some information. I'll just share it on email. We can just read email.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that all gets rolling because I do want to see that change soon.
Anything else, Joe?
I'm good, unless anyone has any questions about my report.
So a couple things. First of all, kudos to you for taking the lead on this thing for the Eat Smart Meet. Thank you for your leadership on that. You just passed tonight, I think, override the tax cap, so that means that now is the green flag, and department head, start your engines and time to get your stuff together for the budget. I have no clue where this budget's gonna go this year because cost of materials, I mean, we got people making something out of nothing, and they're doing a phenomenal job. We'll see where all this goes, but now it's time for everyone to start to submit and see where that goes. Yes, went to the open house for the Bell Station. Brought back a lot of nice memories there. We were still golfing at Cedar View, and it's a nice area. I understand this is something we need to discuss, Mikey. And I don't know if it needs board approval, guys, where I'm going to ask you to jump in. We put no parking signs up, or maybe we should discuss an action plan for this to see where this goes. Because this may turn into, God forbid, UC Point on steroids. We don't know. Hopefully not. But it's out there, and had a meeting with Andy Zepp, CJ and I, and he was describing certain things, and I said, that's UC Point. Mattresses and garbage and marine, oh my. So having said that, how do you police that? How do you get down there? One thing to recommend is cameras. Because if you can get the license plate, then the deputy sheriff can pay them a visit. That happened to me personally when someone was hanging around our road, and he had a talk with his mother and him. Evidently, he was doing skateboarding.
You got a great road for that, Ed.
And thank God it's not heavy like East Lake, but it's gonna end up in a good order. But anyways, we didn't see him again. So I encourage Andy, as we do with Patrick, we see it all the time at the parks with the cameras. So visual security. And maybe that's one way that you do it. We do it in conjunction, we'll have those discussions as far as no parking and stuff like that also. But I'm very concerned about people not really, not so much on the main drag, but also as you go north. For the pageant.
Well, does the town board change the no parking? I don't know that process, so maybe we can go through that just so I understand. How do we make the road no parking?
I was actually gonna have a meeting with Guy on this shortly, but, it's kind of twofold right now. And for the past 15 to 20 years, the problem is you have trespass, right? So no parking isn't gonna correct somebody who's already trespassing. And two, you have underage drinking. So there's two laws being broken. We also have no parking at the Hammerhead turnaround, which has been there as long as I've been at the highway. So people aren't gonna, there's one sheriff for the whole area, so I don't know. I saw Andy Zepp's email and I really don't understand how that's gonna help solve the problem.
Oh, the idea is if there's a party going on and the sheriff goes down and tickets all the vehicles, word will get out that midnight parties are not a good idea, because it's gonna cost you a lot to pay all those tickets. That's the idea behind it.
Well, perhaps we should get the sheriff involved. in the
Yeah,
discussion
sounds like
also.
maybe.
See what his
I mean,
suggestions.
I guess let me have a discussion with Guy and then we'll, we'll report back.
Fair
Reach
enough.
out to him today.
Sounds good.
So my question is, what is the procedure to
Right.
make no parking on a road? I just don't know if the town board has to declare, but the highway department authorized, how's it done?
So Guy, I know we're gonna put you on the spot here. If you need to get back to us, so be it. I don't expect you to have the answer immediately.
No, the procedure's pretty basic. One, you don't really have that kind of control on a state highway, so let's not talk about state and federal highways. As far as town and county roads, New York State vehicle and traffic law preempts local regulations of roads, except to the limited extent that the vehicle and traffic law, as supported by the municipal home rule law, has given the town authority to enact certain types of traffic regulations. The most common of which arise as we would need a town code provision covering parking, vehicle weights, vehicle lengths, whatever you want. But the two relevant provisions are vehicle traffic law, section 385, and vehicle and traffic law, section 1660. 385 gives general authority to regulate roads in a certain way, mostly relating to weight, vehicle length, vehicle size, i.e. don't overload the road to cause damage, obstruct traffic, or hurt life, et cetera, et cetera. For example, I just wrote some codes for the town of Ithaca to deal with vehicle lengths going up Sandbank Road. If you've ever driven up Sandbank Road, you would easily understand why anything over 30 cannot make the turning geometry without going over the center line. So that's the type of area where where a town might be justified in dealing with a section 385 rule. Vehicle and traffic section 1660 basically authorizes a town to enact certain laws consistent with or in limited ways more strict than the vehicle and traffic law. You can't, for example, however, adopt a town speeding law and have all your tickets written under the town law and take the money away from New York State. But parking is a classic area where you have some authority. The authority isn't plenary. It's not a matter of voting. It's a matter of being tied to the police power, public health and safety. If you have a road that can't support parking because it's narrow, it's dangerous, it doesn't have an adequate shoulder, et cetera, then that's a perfectly valid reason to enact a parking regulation. But you have to be careful because if the town doesn't own the road, then the town doesn't necessarily own the roadside. And what you're trying to do is balance the competing interest of the property owner who may want their guests to be able to park on the road when they visit because they don't have a driveway or they don't have an adequate driveway. So there's a lot of issues hiding in there, but what you would be doing is enacting a section of a new article in your town code to regulate vehicle and traffic. And you'd be selecting from section 1660 the types of regulations you would like to enact. You would need to make sure that you have an adequate justification tied to the police power so you don't face a taking claim or have a traffic law that's unenforceable. Yes, there's a lot to it, but no, it's not really all that difficult. We all can look, generally speaking, at a really narrow road that two cars can't even safely pass and generally concur that it would be unsafe to have parking there. Forest Home might be a classic example of a place where roadside parking would by definition be obviously problematic. So based upon the recommendations of local police agencies, actual residents' experiences, traffic reports and incidents, traffic studies, input from the sheriff, you document the reason for your regulation and then you adopt it. So the whole process can be done relatively quickly when the issue is obvious. When the issue is more nuanced, it takes a little more time. You may need a traffic study. You may need to really understand, a neighborhood and the traffic patterns to better understand where to allow parking as opposed to just deny parking everywhere for everyone. How highways are in the public trust, and therefore you manage them for the public. The public has a right to use highways for transportation, delivery, and parking. Alighting to and from a vehicle is the use of a vehicle on a public highway. So you have to balance the competing concerns. So I would say focus on safety, and yes, you have the authority to regulate parking in a proper case.
That's your question.
And I always does it succinctly.
Probably with a little too much detail, but there's multiple vehicle and traffic issues that are starting to come up in the town. So I think having a code provision that you can add chapters to, as opposed to reinventing the wheel every time something comes up, is probably the better solution. But again, Mike and I are going to meet next week and get that process started. And obviously, at the end of the day, whatever is decided upon will require town board input as well as town board approval, because you'll be amending your code.
Is this where we'd start putting in a sidewalk regulation? Because that's going to be something we're going to need to think about in the near future.
You could, but that's not necessarily a vehicle and traffic regulation. You'd have to decide how you're putting in sidewalks, how they're being paid for, et cetera, et cetera. They can be part of your highway system, but they have to be, somebody has to maintain them and repair them. And there is such a thing as a sidewalk district. I'm not sure this is the right climate, financially speaking, to create more taxing authorities. So that's probably a stickier question than you think. But yeah, sidewalks, regulating them would be a vehicle and traffic issue, but building them is more part of your infrastructure and highway system than it is a vehicle and traffic regulation.
Oh, I understand that. I just know that as we, start to have sidewalks being built, and we have one now, we don't have a rule as to who has to keep it clear, who has to maintain it, and all that. And so we need to start thinking in those terms.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if there's going to be more sidewalks, because you need a uniform rule throughout the town. You can't just tell person A it's their responsibility and person B, you'll take care of it.
Exactly. And now's the time to start thinking about enacting that the sidewalks start to develop, rather than when we have lots of them and the big argument is who's responsible.
Oh, I agree. It's much better to get ahead of the problem than wait for it to blow up.
So we have some work to do. There's a couple more things I need to mention here. We're working with the big six, we call them the six municipalities off the sewer, and about finding a bypass and that whole thing, especially with Port Water decreasing their water uptake. Also about us, that we would put on a pause because we have to address the I&I, which I'm very sensitive to Linda Woodard and that whole concern, because it goes above certain threshold. The DEC says we won't be, we will address this now. And we've been Mike has been working very hard. He found one by the DOT that the pipe wasn't put into the other pipe correctly. Brand new system, imagine that. So it's about the I&I, the inflow infiltration, right? The rain comes, you're allowed 2 million gallons a day, whatever it is there, and they spike. Normally it's around 1.3 million, but this thing is about 2. We have 2 or 3 violations in a month. We got problems.
I got a quick question. DOT didn't install their sewer right. Do they have to pay us to fix it, or are we stuck fixing their bad installation?
So I talked with the resident engineer, Eric Buck from the state DOT, and, because of the timing and the time lapse of the project, basically we work hand in hand with them. We shared the cost. So they were good enough to do that. They didn't have to. They could have said, that's your job. You take care of it. Enough time has passed with yours. You own it. So, I was thankful for that. They really stepped up.
So the village of Clear Heights engineer will reach out to the photo. I'm going to get a protocol together probably with the next month. Scott Russell was aware of that. This was the meeting today, CJ. This was the big 5 today. Soon we'll have a big 4, I'm sure. So anyways, and come up with some sort of protocol for this, because we're still, from the intermunicipal agreement, we got so many units left. They were based on 200 gallons. They're back down to 300, and some gallons down to 200. And as these houses become more efficient, some of these only use 70 or 80 gallons, which means you're trying to free up more units as places start to build out, like apartment complexes. So that's what we're working with them hand in hand, but at some point I said, okay, but at some point we already have a gas moratorium, now we have a sewer moratorium. I mean, I support her and I understand thoroughly her concern, because it's gonna fall on her. And she's excellent. In fact, she's the one that should take the lion's share of doing all the math, decreasing the minimum water from 10,000 gallons down to 5 per quarter. It saved a lot of people about $22 a quarter, $88 a year. That was her. She did most of that, and to her credit. But at some point, we're gonna have to address this line item. Otherwise, we're not gonna be getting any more units. That's really problematic. So we hope for positive results. We have a great working relationship with them, as with the village of Lansing, and we will continue that. One question I do have, though, on this resolution we had about Myers Park, there was a secret. Do we need to go through that, or do I just need to sign it at the end of our meeting tonight? And I'll throw it out to CJ or.
In the past.
I think
we've
it-
gone over it, but you usually go over it before you vote on this.
Yeah, there's a packet here, which my apologies, if it should have, I didn't catch it at the time. But it also requires our signature at the end. Is this something we should
On the
have
part
gone
three.
over at a time?
That's a question for Guy. I believe.
Guy, and in my youthful enthusiasm, we just zip right over.
Well, if a seeker resolution hadn't been done or hasn't been done for hiring a consultant, is that what we're talking about?
No, this is the one pertaining to the Myers Park project, architectural design professional services with the
Right.
MBA engineering and land surveying and making seeker negative declaration. So we didn't go over the seeker part of it. I guess if we vote on it, we've made a neg deck, but
No. If I'm, again, you probably should do the environmental review if it relates to approving the proposed project, because that approval is what clears you to hire that consultant or engineer or designer or whatever. I'm just not familiar with whether there had already been a seeker, whether this is a supplemental. I mean, I saw the documents. If they're there and need to be done, then do the seeker resolution and re-adopt the resolution to play it safe. Do the seeker review and then just technically re-adopt the resolution. It may be redundant, but if seeker needed to be done, the resolution should not have been adopted until after the seeker was done. So just take a step back, do the environmental review, and then re-adopt.
what procedure should we do? Should we undo the resolution or we just do this as an amendment?
Just do it again.
So I guess, without having to do another resolution to start the process, we'll do one at the end to approve it, hopefully. I guess, is it Guy or CJ want to walk us through the seeker process then here?
We should correct the name of the project in the secret form with a K in the project.
So there should be a part 2 and 3 in your packet, as well as a part 1.
I think it's part one, and there's a typo in the name of the project.
Okay, yeah, so this year the New York State Parks changed their process. This is a result of a conversation with the regional grants administrator for New York State Parks. This year, the state has asked contract awardees to complete seeker prior to contract. So that's why you're seeing this as part of the selection of the consultant.
So should we need to go through this? or
Yeah,
not?
yeah, you could go through the part 2 by question, or you can just ask if anyone has any questions on the part 2 or 3. I mean, I defer to council on how detailed you want to get with this, but the information is there in the packet, as far as I know.
So part 1, we don't have to go over, or do we? I'm a little fuzzy here. I got part 1, 2, and 3.
Well, let me ask this. Have people reviewed part 1? Are there, other than sort of like generic items like punctuation and typo. In terms of the substance of what's there, are there any objections? Do people have any concerns? Do they think anything's been overlooked?
Why don't we just go through it briefly, just make sure everybody's on the same page. That way we've all had a chance to look at it a second time. If something pops up, we can say, we discuss this or not. Probably should take 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
So CJ or Guy, you want to run, CJ want to run this through?
So are you starting with part 1 or are you starting at part 2?
Part one.
Part 1, page 31 on the packet.
But usually we just review part 2. We never review part 1 before,
Right.
but so I'm just trying to follow what we're doing.
So as we look at this, I have a question and I don't know how we can solve this. This may be a limit of this technology, but every time we do this, I am not sure what
Yes.
we're approving because the section 10 item A, like on page 32, it covers what the answers are. So I can't,
The headings are.
yeah, the heading covers, is there a way we can
So it's
fix
no
that in the
yes or
future? Right, like,
not-
I can't do
No,
anything about
that's
that.
that's a program.
well, that is irritating.
Sorry. I
It's
mean,
entirely your fault. Pat.
it is. It's not, actually, I have nothing to do with that part of the program, so it's,
All right, so section 1's been done by CJ, she signed off on it. So who on section 2? You read to yourself, if you want. Take a moment. Give me a holler when everybody's read it.
Yep.
Rob? Anyone can start? Ruth? Okay, Andrew?
So my question is, in part 1, we know that there's an endangered species adjacent to the project, the lake sturgeon, it's on page 34.
Right.
We don't say anything about it in our short run thing to say, this will enhance, it's not gonna hurt the lake sturgeon. It's kind of, it feels to me like we say, yes, there's a potential issue, and then we ignore it.
So let's document this someplace. How's that?
Yeah, that's all I'm looking for, and maybe just this meeting and discussing it, because I don't think it's gonna affect the lake sturgeon, but if we highlight it and say, yes, we've noticed that the lake sturgeon are there, and they are down in this part of the lake, I know that's sure.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to document that we thought about the lake sturgeon, we didn't just ignore it.
Well, we don't do that. So,
So should this be redone then?
I don't know, I mean, guys, is this noting the meeting enough, or should it be on the short form, part 3?
Well, I'm gonna admit a bit of confusion. What is it that you think would result in a moderate to large impact to lake sturgeon from this project?
I don't, I just know that we noted in part 1 that they're here, and then we don't say that it's a minor impact or no impact anywhere else. We say, yes, there is a threat to endangered species that could be impacted by our project, and then we don't say, we thought about it, and we don't think this project's gonna impact them negatively.
Well. if we
No,
did-
part 1 doesn't report an impact. Part 1 reports data. Part 2 analyzes whether the impact assessment arises to a certain level or exists under seeker. And part 3 makes a determination based on mitigation, geographic scope and magnitude, probability of the event occurring. So lots of stuff show up in part one that wouldn't be triggered by a project. There could be a wetland nearby. Obviously there is. There could be a floodplain nearby. Obviously there is. But we're not proposing building in the floodplain. And therefore the impact would be likely no too small, but that's your choice to make. So there are, I mean, there's,
just if you look at number 9, Joe, I think it addresses that in part 2. It says, will it result in adversarial change to natural resources, which includes fauna? And we're saying.
right,
yep,
right.
we're
And then
straight-
saying no to a small impact. If we were proposing a wharf system in critical breeding ground for the species or invading the trout stream, because I think my Salmon Creek is a CT regulated stream, class stream, then we would probably not be as easily able to trigger a no or small impact. And you'd have potentially either a moderate to large impact or an impact that's been mitigated by something unique, a water study, a spawning study, buffering, building a fish ladder, whatever it might be. So there's lots of stuff that shows up in part 1. And that's why when I said earlier, is there an issue with part 1? Because the hard look really sort of starts with part 1, you go through it long before you, I mean, usually you have it prepared long before you get to an environmental review. You've reviewed it, you've supplemented it with whatever additional studies you think may be necessary or required. Then you go through the impact analysis of part 2, and obviously how you classify the action, whether as a unlisted action, so you're using a short form, or a type 1 action using a long form. The part 2 is very, very different for those types of projects, because the presumption for a type 1 action is that it is more likely to produce a marge to moderate impact. Not that it will, but it is more likely to. So there's like, literally like 57 questions to answer in 13 or 14 subparts instead of just these 11. So I agree. I reviewed this back when it was submitted to the town board a few weeks ago and distributed with the initial materials. I sort of agreed. I agreed with the impact assessment because I think there were 2 endangered species listed in the area as set forth by the EAF mapper, but this project isn't really going to affect any of them. We're not developing new critical nesting habitat for birds or disturbing critical habitat for fish. We're working on the land section of the park, but I'm not charged with making the determination. So I'm glad the record is at least proving that you're taking a hard look at it.
I would say that's correct. So we're going to move on to part 3.
Yeah.
And part 3 says, and I checked the box, that we have made a determination here of a small or a negative impact. Does everybody agree with part 3?
Smaller and negative.
Whatever it is, let me just find it. Yeah, it says, you check this box, we have determined based on the information and analysis above and any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental effects.
Okay.
Just
Well, once again, you have in front of me, it would hide it. Yes, CJ?
Just want to mention real quick that the information about the species is pulled from the DEC's Nature Explorer, and it does generalize rare plants and animals. So can often point to concentration of animals, for instance, that it points out that there's waterfowl winter concentration area, which makes sense. But I do just want to mention that we were clear in the documentation that we have to coordinate with DEC and Army Corps of Engineers for anything that's going to be affecting the shore, as Pat is more than well aware of. So just want to mention that as well.
So having said that, the procedure now is going to revisit this for a vote. Or do we have to go back and have another motion and second and then have a vote, guys.
I think we have to vote to have a negative determination and agree to part 2 and 3, 1, 2, and 3.
I don't recall ever doing that in the past, but maybe.
I don't either. I mean, it's in the
We
resolution.
usually
And
just,
resolution.
we usually just review part 2 and 3 and then vote on the resolution, which we kind of did this backwards.
So Guy had suggested we just vote on it again to cover ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the resolution itself contains the negative declaration. I, you know, now that you've gone through it on the record and once you said that you hadn't done it, I think it was incumbent upon you to do it. I would simply, as I said before, now that you've gone through the seeker and looked at part 2 and asked questions about part 1 and agreed with part 3, just go back and readopt the resolution because the negative declaration is in there and then you're all set.
I move the resolution. I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Well,
I'm waiting. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you.
okay, so Joe, you're moving it.
Yeah.
And
then
Ruth, I mean, yeah, do I move that just, I mean, we've already voted on it, so I'm not really sure. I can figure that out with Guy tomorrow, I guess, but.
Well, I mean, it's in
This is,
there.
this
It's
is
in
a
there.
whole second vote, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we just, what's the word? I hope we try due diligence. At least we discussed it.
Mhm.
I heard they've been quiet about it, but. never had a discussion.
Okay, Andrew Benson,
Yeah.
Ruth Groff,
Yes.
Brian Winlosi,
Yes,
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes, we have our working session now. We take a break. For a few minutes. Stretch. We'll have about 5 minutes break. I asked, once we get through the working session, I would like to go to the executive session also. Yeah.
Trying to make me up. That's right, really.
Is it, is that? I don't think we're gonna discuss it.
I have some.
Like I said.
So I've got like people right there. Right.
I asked,
I have- Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna do it to pilots, honestly.
I mean, I don't know.
So I share that.
My biggest thing is worried about that.
No, it's not that very.
Well, but that's the idea. This is like moving out of the woods, like just can't. You know,
Yeah.
get out there and it's like, it's like that. So
And I can put that in the-
I guess.
I think we
I don't
got
know. It's not. Right now, it's partying, it's not.
well, we should be on something.
Right. Right, but now that it's open, but closed place, say. So I'm hopeful. But anyway, like, I think you feel partially about it, like, if not, that's no.
Yeah, it'd be really good. Yeah, no, I'm. There's no. Right, so we like.
Yeah.
So there's no safety concern on that. Not, but it doesn't mean, that, you know, there's already no parties. Anybody's got that. It is going.
Well,
Good, our personal structure.
right, down there, but if we could make it as a requirement for,
Right.
yeah, like,
Yeah, I guess my concern is the code doesn't specify how something would be evaluated.
right, exactly. And
So Scott's determination of listing frees
focus on
is a little bit
that, just making
arbitrary.
sure.
And
We're
and
doing
that I
this
think
to
is
help
probably-
out, you know, the folks in the.
I guess I think it was,
And they're
Yeah.
they're good.
Yeah, that's good.
For the most part, that, you know, and for as many years as I've been going on. they've never complained about the party.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not right, that's my two biggest
I
problem.
mean, we have
Urban
potential.
grid law, like, not any, it's just already stressed that it's a
Yeah.
problem. So, I mean, maybe ticketing will help. I guess you gotta get the share. So it's having these entire
So we
county.
asked for.
Although,
that wanted to
I guess
make
what
that
Mary
work,
Hunter
see
did,
how
my
we- so
neighbor, she said that
how
when
we
she
receive
called, she wasn't sure what to do, she had
all
a
of
money
them
grant.
sitting on-
They said they were sending somebody out, they got three calls already. about it. So like, well,
I
it
can't
needs
do
to be
that.
out, it's a ticket.
I asked her.
Maybe.
And
So,
I guess it's worth a shot.
exactly,
Sixteen,
we can figure out how to do it, it's worth a shot.
I
It's
just.
terrible that that trash bag.
It's gorgeous now, see, yeah.
No,
The top 30 highest.
Just little work for doing there.
Yeah.
There's work to that for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Walking in bird watching, things like that.
Right.
It's a beautiful spot. It's really
The Finger Lakes Land Trust and
I mean, I'd be happy to
volunteers,
say.
you know, I was down there, picking up broken glass. There, oh, you go down there is so much poison ivy, right, like, there's wide trails, stay on them. Don't mess around, like you walking right around the turnaround, it's this lush forest poison ivy. It's just.
Right. It's 2 weeks from now, right?
Sure, yeah, sure.
That's what we.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're gonna have to, I love the more.
Right, yeah, I gotta catch up on Absolutely, yeah. No problem.
But I saw your note.
Oh, it's, yeah, just the great all and then storage. But there's so much.
So that's something that, again, obviously, you know, once again,
My challenge with the code is that there's no specific method for evaluation. Right, so there's no.
Well,
method for
in the
assessment
report,
for
like,
time.
oh, that, the
That's,
GC still added
that's
that,
totally up to someone.
something in. It's all my line, but I don't know, Charmaine had pulled it off, you know, the town, she has a copy of mine, so when I go.
so what I'm saying, you have guidance, where this.
Right.
So I asked her to move first. To the clerk and to CJ. And that was.
Yeah, there's lots of,
Right.
yes.
So including- I asked her, what's the process?
When you said that, you said, I'm like, oh Lord, I got
So that's.
I gotta do that, you know, I just, I struggle, and it's still.
I'm getting. Essentially, analyzed for lunch.
Yeah, well, I mean,
The same thing for 3 days. And really.
No, the only thing I would change for myself is like where it's, I think, location. Like that. But it works for you, I know what it is, like there's things in there that will like sign for it and things like that, that are probably just change to last. I know what it
Is considered the next step. But my question to them
And I
was,
think
on any sort of.
years of.
Service.
It's 15 years according.
It's very, it's very.
So you know, I took a 3-day course to see where they're like, well, in the perfect world, Everything,
I mean, you can have that.
fair and start these services.
I don't wanna, once
You
again,
know,
jump
we're making 6 miles road, I can't get to fair all at once.
That doesn't mean that.
It's nice, it's less than daily. I'm like,
There's some-
there's budget, you know, and then if we look at.
I don't know, like I said,
$5
you start
per hour, that would be
and
at
quite
2
frankly, I don't
years,
wanna say what you should have
that's
done,
not
but
really enough to do blacktop.
people wanna get on the agenda.
I was.
So I do, I dropped the ball.
Such a cost, that would be,
Okay.
And I was.
that would be every 15-year cycle, that's what we need, so it's just not feasible for the states. You know, it's just, it's rough. Most of the years, you know, we used to have some, yeah, thank you for doing that. I mean, I can never do the cost, I can never publish.
I'm happy to provide it.
It's pretty easy.
And it's the copy on pretty much every.
But it's not the same, right? I have to respect staff. I know we get you out and I get you out, and then I can make a decision.
CJ represent Scott as the director of planning.
No, it's not a decision. It's made. It's you out. They don't want all staff out.
Yeah.
So we have a bad process like that. I'm trying to fix the process on that I can, which is, let's figure out what so.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I also requested to go in front of the first email. It was Scott's decision, which I also was expected to do, and that also fell on that first. I asked CJ what the process was for what I needed to do that. If it's the ZBA first, then the town board. But this, That's what he told me.
They're gonna override that, they can override, well, they override or not is interpretation. What I can do is that, one, you be first, okay, just throw it right out there. Let's consider, I have to call them emergency. I can't promise you anything, let's go ahead and give you a fair shot.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Right, and let's wait to be heard, because this is gonna set the foundation for changes on this thing. Because a lot of times, people have to change, you expose to different situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, right?
And that's what we do. Right, to interpret that to them.
So we'll give you 15 minutes if you want.
I appreciate it. I don't want to, again, I'm not trying to be combative or, it's just real one.
Well, you're also, like,
I get what it's like to
also business. Yeah, you want to. Yeah, we have all these different concerns going on, right?
And I respect the position you all are in, and I realize that it's not as easy as everybody would want it to be. So I respect the complexity. I just hope that we could at least have more of a conversation.
Well, it's certainly.
The quote has outside of the appeal process.
And that's, I understand that concern, I understand that concern. And I'm not disrespectful. On the other hand, let's see this, let's go back.
Yeah, my biggest concern for that, I told you the first one. I don't have a huge issue with taxes. I don't have a huge issue with permits.
And then number two, have
What I do have is exorbitant taxes, exorbitant. And I think $2,200 for the same thing in a unique situation is exorbitant. And so I'm more than happy to pay a fee for a permit. Even though I think I need it, I'll still do that. I just, $2,200 for this thing. Yeah, it's different from.
I hear that a lot.
So that's why I is there an opportunity for here's my events, who won sort of bulk permit, a single permit for all these events with the same protocol. And I filled out, I talked to the sheriff department, there's no such thing as a sheriff department. So I wouldn't call
Also have to be what the process.
Attention, the 5 minutes is way fast.
Okay, Debbie, what's now?
We could have spent another 30 minutes.
Okay, way to go, deputy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding, that's like
We'll do
15
it after.
minutes.
So we have some unique situations here tonight, and I'd like Mr. Medley was kind enough to give us a little insight on his situation. I'd like to give him some time to talk to the board. We'll put him in the working session now. And I think we need to go a little more in depth as far as what his concerns are. So Mr. Medley, I'll give you the floor.
Great, thank you. Again, I appreciate the time and sorry to extend the meeting. I know what it feels like to sit there and have some purple. So thank you again. My biggest concern with the mass gathering permits is really the way that the code is written and defined. We have a unique situation. We have 14 acres. We have 174 slips on the water. A mass gathering is defined as 200 people or more for 15 minutes or greater, right, in any one spot. As I understand it, please correct me if my interpretation is not correct. When I had reached out, I had mentioned that our estimated numbers of attendance for this specific event, which is having a band play at our business, was not going to be in that 200 range number. So I didn't feel I needed the permit, but still went ahead and submitted for consideration to the code enforcement officer, our site map. I contacted the sheriff's department, went through some planning, talked with Scott in more detail, and had a lot of that for the CJ. My issue really comes down to if it's considered an event or if it's considered a mass gathering, it's $200 for each one. So again, that's $2,200 essentially for the same thing over between July 3rd and September 3rd. So that sort of 2-month summer window that we have to really get out there and enjoy the hot, humid weather. And so I guess I'm just asking for the board to, one, look at that, because I don't think that code is intact the way that it should be. There's some challenges that Scott had, and I apologize, I don't mean to use his first name. I'm not trying to directly call him out. It's easier than saying the code enforcement officer. So I'll say Scott. When Scott communicated to me his decision, he said, let's do it for 3 events at $200 each, 3 separate permits, and we'll see how it goes. My concern is that those 3 events, the let's see how it goes, is arbitrary, and it's not covered in the code. And that's my concern, is that there's no clear standard by which the code lays out so that I can know what's going to be, if it goes well or if it doesn't go well. We'll do our best. We have, on certain sunny days, we could potentially have at our business more than 200 people because we have 173 slips. Those people are on their boats, or on the water. How are those people counted? To my knowledge, we've never had down there an issue with parking or using the park or blocking the roads or anything like that. We've been able to manage the cars and capacity well. I would say we probably have more of an issue when the park has a large event with people parking on our property than the other way around. But I think we have a clear plan to manage that. I also had asked that if it was a problem to have this promoted in a public forum like Facebook or other social media communication, that we would make it a private event just for our voters, because private events under this code are excluded. And we've since this discussion started back in March with the planning department, code enforcement. We've removed any posting on social media for it. We've removed it from our website, just because we didn't know where it was going to go or what it was going to take. As I mentioned to Ed and Joe, I have no issue with permit. I have no issue with a fee or taxes to process that permit. My issue is when it becomes exorbitant and excessive. And I think in this situation, $2,200 for the same type of event, essentially having music play in the lobby of your business, becomes excessive. And what I'm asking the town board to do is to, under section 174-27 of the code, is to provide a waiver for those fees. Again, happy to pay the $200 for a permit fee if it can cover all of those events. Happy to work with the park department, the sheriff's department, the code enforcement to make sure that it's a safe and enjoyable event for all. I guess I'm just asking for a little bit of relief as you all talked about, and you know, as budget seasons are coming, everything's costing more money these days. Fuel, supplies, material, all that kind of stuff. And we all make it out the same way. So I guess as a small business owner, I'm just trying to be protective of my dollar, but also create a safe, productive environment, for everybody to kind of enjoy the water. Happy to answer any questions. I don't know if I've given enough detail or enough of the background, but I'm more than happy to dive into any other specific issues.
So, Mr. Mendy, the dates are July 2nd, 3rd, 4th?
2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Sorry, I figured 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, which is that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and it's from 1 to 4. All the events are from 1 to 4. It's midday. It's not in the evening, so there's really no concern of excessive noise at night or anything like that. Then the next date is 7/24, 7/30, 8/6, 8/14, 8/20.
Can you back up a bit? I'm sorry, 7/24,
7/24, 7/30, 8/6, 8/14, 8/20, 8/21, 8/27, and then 9/3.
No, it sounds like the first one's over the course of the weekend and the rest of them are these weekend days or.
Yeah, it's all Saturday and Sundays, except for the July 4th weekend, which we included the Monday for the holiday.
and you're asking for a fee of $200 for all of them?
I am.
I would just point out, oh, go ahead on, sorry.
How many people on US County?
Somewhere between 100 or so, if I count the voters. When we did this on July 3rd last year, many people just sat on the back of their boats because if you centrally locate the band.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it sort of plays throughout and you can hear it. So there wasn't really a large congregation in a dedicated area. There's maybe 25, 30 people at most. Obviously, we're trying to do more with the marina. We have a stronger presence on social media. So yeah, of course, I think people want to be down there now. And so I think we will see a higher estimated attendance, but I don't see us having 200 people in a audience type setup for this event. That's why I didn't feel that we needed the permit. But more than happy to oblige that determination if that's the decision of the board, the code enforcement officer.
You're gonna say something like that?
I just wanted to point out there is no conflict with our concert series whatsoever. So there's no overlap of his concerts, just so they're, so everyone's clear on that one.
So not to be blunt, but I guess direct, which is blunt. I'm trying to be gracious here. It's about the money. I mean, the rest of it seems to check all the boxes about the public safety, and if someone needs to get in with an ambulance, they can, God forbid, that's everything.
Yeah.
But the main issue is the 11 times, right?
Doing 200 every single
Yeah,
time.
it's doing 11 permit applications for the same thing.
Of course, we're in uncharted water as far as this goes. So how do we meet some middle ground here? So in your packet, you have the comments. What also to consider, once again, that's something that I'd like to discuss with our planner, director of planning, also Scott, and back to you. I know there's a time crunch on here, we can't promise anything. But I also said to you, and I'll say the other thing, call emergency meeting will, based on one, see what our possibilities are for that. I have concerns more about the public safety, but you know, if you've gone through and checked the boxes and everything, so be it. You have, if they need to get an ambulance in there, God forbid, you get an ambulance in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I hope you don't have to.
We're on the same page here. We house the sheriff's boat in the marina. And one of the things that we communicated to them was that it would be accessible, and then we'd make sure that they had accessibility to that and all those different things. And they've already signed off
Okay.
on the event as we presented the same information to them, and I believe that Lieutenant Ziegenfuss and Koskinen both communicated or shared that with either Scott and or CJ. If not, I'm happy to share my correspondence that I have with them as well.
So the logistics seem to be acceptable. It's just the dollar amount. That's
And
the-
the 11 applications.
Yeah, the 11 applications. That's interesting. Now, I guess, I mean, personally, is that where this comes across again, how do you put it in a threshold of something? Not one, because it's for everything, but again, not just every time you have to do this. And once again, I'd like to have a discussion with the CJ and also with Scott. You know, do this for our board and hopefully we can answer ours before July. Second, third, or fourth, I mean, you know, go ahead.
I just have a procedural question. If the decision were made to waive some or all of the fees, is that a board that would we have to meet as a board? That's a board decision. We have to meet and make the decision as the board, or is that something that could be happen at the code office level?
Let's throw this out to Guy or CJ. Can you give some guidance on this? Because we're in uncharted water right here.
Well, I can give you some guidance. If you're going to issue a waiver, there's 5 standards you have to make a ruling upon, and you may need an environmental review. However, I believe the code enforcement officer has issued a determination. So jurisdiction on the review of that determination under state law goes to the ZBA. There's more here than you think, but you know.
Would that be the case if the waiver were only on the cost, on the fee? If that's the only waiver that we wanted to do, would we have to go through all of that?
Well, the question is if the ZBA makes a determination under town law 267A, is it the jurisdiction of the town board to review that determination? Or is it the jurisdiction of the ZBA? So the answer under town law is it's the jurisdiction of the ZBA. However, the town board does have the right to review a waiver. I'd have to look at the determination. I'd like to have, if a waiver is being applied for, there should be an application for it. And I heard bits and pieces of an application when you were off camera. But be that as it may, I don't have the information in front of me, and you don't have the information in front of you to make a determination. It may be that this specific aspect of the matter does not need review by the ZBA. But I'd want to look at that because, again, you're dealing with something that your enforcement officer has made a written determination upon. So if you just want to start, you know, equivocating and overturning your own staff, I guess you probably should consider the impact of that type of action as well.
We're just trying to gather information here tonight, guys, so we can see what the process is.
Yeah, I understand that, but there's a lot here. And you know, I understand the point. I understand that you could amend the local law to have a series of events be treated as one application. But for instance, when you deal with application fees, if a nonprofit comes to you like FoodNet and says, oh, we don't want to pay our building permit fee, are you allowed to waive it? And the answer is legally, including under the New York State Constitution, no. So there are issues here because it's public money that you're surrendering, and you can't pick and choose who gets to pay a permit and who doesn't. The waiver would be the proper process, but I'd like to make sure that it doesn't run afoul of the jurisdiction of the ZBA in the first instance.
Okay, so Guy, can you lay out a process, because this gentleman here has been trying to go before us in the ZBA, and he's feeling very frustrated at not even having a clear path or a waiver form to fill out or something. What would be the best path for him to take right now?
I don't know that I necessarily know that. I know that the determination as to what would be required is well over a month old. Why one of the actions that the code officer suggested to advance the ball wasn't pursued until now. I'm not sure what the cause of the confusion is. I don't have all of the information. Like Ed, I too would like to talk to the town planner and the town code officer before making a determination. I'm also I'm also hesitant to make a recommendation or dole out legal advice because the town's my client, not the applicants. No offense to the gentleman there who is understandably frustrated because he's been trying to navigate this process for a while and feels like he's spinning his wheels. But the process would seem to me to be appeal the determination, put in the application, apply for a written waiver. It would be to do something.
So if I could just clarify, because Guy made a comment about the 30-day window, and my email, there's an email from Scott on May the 12th that said it was his final determination. I had emailed CJ and Debbie requesting permission for a waiver on June the 1st. So I do believe I'm well within that 30-day window. So I just want to make that distinction because I do think that there were some things, and there is no application for a waiver. And that was one of the challenges I was having was I had asked for time on the town board agenda, and it was responded back to me that I have time on privilege of the floor. And obviously knowing what privilege of the floor is, there's no decisions or there's no discussion that happens on the privilege of the floor. So I asked follow-up questions. CJ had said, if you want to supply, information, there's tons of written narrative, and there was already a request on June 1st. Didn't feel the need to submit another request by June the 8th or June the 10th, whatever the date was. So I get all of guys' questions and concerns, but I do think that the process is fundamentally flawed. And I do think you have the ability as the town board to solve that. And I guess that's what I'm asking for, because the first email, goes back to March. And there's been a lot of back and forth and information sharing. And I've asked for where the sheriff's department permit application is that's referenced in the code. One does not exist. I've asked for several things that's referenced in the town code, but have been able to get none. I asked for time on June the 1st in front of the BCA, or how to get in front of the BCA for this type of thing, because it's not a real property, zoning request. It's a determination request, and I didn't see a form that fit that. So there is a lot at play here, but I don't think that I'm past the 30 days. I've asked for a waiver from the board. I still have 30 days from that point for any further action if there's a final determination from the board provided. So I guess I would like, if there is going to be a formal process, I'd like to know what that is, and I'd like it spelled out, because otherwise I do feel that this is an arbitrary process and we're sort of making it up as we go. And that is problematic as somebody who operates a business in the community and for others to come. And I'm willing to take the time and have the conversations because I feel it's important that we have accessible regulations and we have accessible code, and it's clear and people understand it. And really that's partly where I'm coming from as well.
I'm not clear why it's a problem to tell this gentleman what the process should be. Whether his timelines are off or not, that's a different question. He wants a waiver. We need to be able to tell him where to apply for it and how to apply for it. I don't know.
I think it doesn't exist.
I think we as a town have the obligation to tell him, this is your process. Now, we may have to get together and make a process, but he needs to be given a process because he can't be told.
And quickly.
Yeah. well, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it before this July 1st contract. I mean, that may be an issue. But we need to give them a process, and I'm looking to you, Guy, to help me understand how we can give him a process of, here's what you need to do to apply for a waiver, because he seems to not be able to find a application to fill out or an understanding of, you need to answer, you need to spell your case out and send it to so-and-so. You know, what's the process?
Well, as I noted, there are three choices. One, apply for the permit. Two, apply for the waiver, which traditionally has been you submit a written narrative explaining your reasons and touching upon the standards set forth in the code for a waiver in this particular code provision. Or three, you apply to the ZBA and you check the box that you're doing an appeal instead of a variance. I believe that's one of the forms. So there are three different ways forward. I'm not saying, I'm not explaining what those ways forward are. I'm simply saying I don't have the information to make a decision. I wouldn't make the decision for the applicant, and I don't even have the information to advise the town at this point. I'd also want to know whether or not the waiver may or may not require a seeker. It very well may be a type 2 action and not require a seeker as a mere administrative review or determination. But you're making a determination as to whether or not permit and permit review and permit mitigation conditions may or may not apply to event, or are you only determining the amount of the fee that's paid for the permit application or applications? I'm not clear on the scope of what the waiver is. Again, this is the first I've really heard about it, other than all the discussions in early May about what these options were and what the determination of the code officer was respecting this event or these events.
When you say he would have to submit a request for waiver option number 2, who would that be submitted to?
The town board, probably filed with the town clerk, as is most everything that's submitted to the
Okay.
town board.
Thank you.
Yep.
My letter I'm first to the clerk and to CJ. I said additionally, I'd like to request time on the next town board meeting agenda to appeal the local law section 174.27 regarding the fees involved with the mass gathering permit. I was instructed, I was not given any instruction of, and you cannot find on the website, the application or anything of the sort. The 5 standards are in the code, of course, but my understanding was for the board to answer those questions. I'm happy to answer them for you as I think and present that. But again, I've been asking for some help in the process, and that's where I feel like to no one's fault, because I think, again, Ed, to your point, that's very unknown. But here we are.
I asked one question. Did you say this event is for only the voters that are in the marina? It's not necessarily open to the public?
So I had asked that question, if making this a private event for our slip holders would change the determination of the code enforcement officer. And after everything that his rationality provided, he said no. It was originally intended to be open to our customers, and that's can be, defined in a number of ways. Again, it's not a music in the park type event. It's just not what we're going for. It's not what it's intended to be. If people are out on the water and they can hear it and enjoy it, great. If people come over from the park and listen to it, I wasn't going to kick them out. But if I need to stand there and check, make sure everybody's a slip holder, I'm more than happy to do that and make it a private event. But it's already been determined in the email that I got that wouldn't change the determination.
At this point, for me to move forward, I'd like to consult with Guy in a closed session to get advice from the attorney to have it forward.
I think we all should. So I, once once again, we're not gonna properly answer tonight. But I think going forward, we need to get some guidance on what the schedule is moving forward, what the options are for you and for the board. So of course, this is a unique situation. My apologies for bringing it in the last minute. So that's on me. And like I said, so I think we'll go into closed session. We won't have an answer for you tonight. But hopefully we'll have some sort of parameters we can work with on this for the future, because I don't think it's just for this. I think it's gonna be for, once again, this is another chapter written, right? So we'll see.
I guess I would just ask that I could provide with a final determination so that I could have all of my options still available to me. So if there's something that the board decides that it is sent to me in writing, or that it's clear that it is a determination of sorts, because, you know, to Guy's point, Guy's also watching the clock because he's also watching the best interests of the town, but I also need to watch my best interests. So I want to make sure that I'm within 30-day periods and things like that.
Oh, sure. Now, I'm trying to think of other places that do these on a regular basis on their property.
City of Ithaca does similar things where they've got the summer concert series on the commons.
But those are all public.
Right, but I'm talking about, like, for instance, if Salt Point Brewery had music over there, since they're a business on a property, how does that different than this over here? Or how does another business, like when Crossroads had theirs, how is that different? I'm trying to wrap my head around this to see, okay, why is this different than the rest of them? Because people will be coming there also. And I don't know what that difference is yet. And I'm not putting blame on anybody, so please, I'm not going that direction. I'm just trying to say, well, what if this wasn't down there? What if it was over here, or down the road? Would we have the same situation or not? And I don't know if we would, because you have a business, maybe you would. I know when it was Dutch Mills wanted to do the fireworks, they had to do a mass gathering. Sure. And that was a shock. They had to do that. So.
They have to do it for the crown. Not running 200 people go to the crown.
Yeah.
The school, I think, so. I think there's some exceptions in the.
You're quite familiar with it at this point, yeah.
Speak out of turn.
We're trying to wrap my head around.
Right.
Why is this unique and the rest isn't, that's all.
And I would say when we say that this is unique, in some ways it is, but in other ways, like, people are gonna come up against quirks of the code and have a timeline and need to get on the agenda and figure out who they should talk to. And I think that's something that this is really highlighting for us as a board, that we have to figure out how somebody gets from, you know, contacting Debbie and saying, I need to get on the agenda, and then, like, how information gets filtered through and people, what that procedure looks like, which is an entirely different conversation, but I think it's important for us to be thinking about it and, like, looking at how to move forward with that, which doesn't have to happen on the same timeline, and, you know, not quite as urgent, but it is helpful that you brought this forward in the sort of hole in our procedure that it's highlighting for us.
You know, when we did the harbor festivals, we had to fill out a mass gathering on that. What the Lansing Community Council used to do is they used to give the park $500 in case any lost revenue. Council those lines. And if a pavilion was open, they could just go ahead and run it out and care. But that was one event each year. And I think this is where it comes in. We have 11. That's the other part. There's a whole bunch of different dynamics here. And like I said, I'm trying to wrap my head around if this was a private event, we'd be having conversations. And I don't know if we would or not. Right, what I'm saying is it's a public gathering now, because it wasn't just a private event where you say, okay, closed only to your voters.
But you said you'd be willing to do, like, if that
Yeah,
would change it.
I've taken it down.
Right.
All
Right.
posting of this down in any social sphere or any
So it is a-
web environment. But my understanding from Scott was that this determination, it didn't matter anymore because it had already been put out there.
Right, because it had been made, and then so what's the process for moving forward, given that that determination was determined, right?
So let's
Just
Move to
move on to
close.
our next agenda item and then go into closed session.
yeah, we'll go to closed session a little bit later. Okay, and someone will respond. Okay.
Thanks for your time. Sorry to take, I know you got a lot more.
No,
interesting
this
stuff to
is, and like I said, this is nobody's fault.
deal with. No,
Okay, it's nobody's fault. This is like an uncharted water. How do you, and going through pandemics, we're all used to uncharted water now, so it's okay.
yeah, CJ, Debbie, Scott, everyone has been more than gracious. Again, I think it's just a confused process, so I do appreciate their willingness to work, and again, no ill intent or disrespect or anything for
No.
highlighting this. I think you guys have an incredible staff, and it's important to recognize good staff. So,
Thank you for investing in your time.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Happy to. You guys have a great rest of the meeting. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
We'll go and post that in a moment. We have a few more things. Andre wants to talk.
Oh. I guess I feel pretty strongly since, Jonathan's on county health department, said that we don't need to wear masks, that I think it should be optional. If people want to wear them, fine, if people do not, then I think it should be fine, and I think we should take the sign off. Saying you must wear it this week, they're not wearing them other meetings. So why are we?
How does everyone feel about that?
You can wear
Are you
them.
comfortable?
Yeah.
If you don't want to.
How about everybody else? Everybody comfortable with that as an option? Because quite frankly, I don't know about you, but don't arrest me for doing this, but I'm doing this now, right? Or I got it in my pocket, right? I mean, I was helping someone with the garden the other day, we're outside, they were wearing masks. I said, okay, I put one on, it's okay.
Yeah.
If they don't have to, I said, well, this is, you know, because as soon as I came over, they ran to get their masks. I said, no, this makes you uncomfortable. It's not a courtesy, right? I mean, kindness, let's try something rational, being kind to each other, right? Say, no problem. And to me, it's like, if they want to do it, then fine. If someone says, you know, if you're uncomfortable, for instance, say, geez, I really feel uncomfortable, I would be more than happy with this on that. So if everybody, do we need to do a resolution on that to say this is because this is part of our?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder if we were to pin, rather than having to do a resolution like every time the health department changes advice or something, if we just say if the health department is recommending it, we require it or something like that.
Where you filed the health department's recommendations.
Right, good. Yeah, rather than.
I think that's what our policy said to start with. No one
Yeah.
changed it.
Okay, all the recommendations.
So this is something you want to do at our next meeting?
No, we
No.
have to, because we have to rewrite that resolution that we passed.
Well,
Oh, we
I
need
want-
to just quick motion to say that the mask thing is not mandatory anymore and we'll follow the mask requirements. of the health department.
It sounds good.
I'll say that.
Way to
Okay,
go.
Right now, because I'm
Yeah.
concerned about you.
What?
I'm concerned- Yeah.
Well, we've got this long COVID policy that we need
Yeah.
to change.
Right, we just need to why can't we just do a motion saying we're changing that policy?
Because I don't have it in front of me to know what. the-
Johnny, can we do this with a simple motion?
Well, I'm not, I don't know if you folks are aware of the audio quality that's being broadcast, but I'm not sure I'm following this. Is the discussion that you want your masking and other COVID variant recommendations to generally follow health department guidelines?
Yes.
The only one we're talking about is masking at the moment. Like, we're not looking at the rest of it, so we're not speaking to the rest of it. We're talking specifically about masking following the health department guidelines.
Well, the original policy did say that you would follow the health department guidelines. So I'm not sure that you have to do much of anything unless, of course, you've already changed that policy language. I'd have to go look it up.
We did change that guy to state that
Required.
it was required at town board meetings only, it was required to have masks on. There was a motion, resolution, something maybe, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. Something like that.
Maybe two.
It's only 2 months ago.
I think so.
Oh, I think it was one of those.
I think so.
6 months, a year ago, we have no idea.
Yeah,
It was like January.
two.
I would just like to have the language in front of me before I vote on it to see what. the
Yeah, I mean,
policy-
I'm sort of no offense, I'm sort of agreeing with Joe. I mean, had I known that this was going to be discussed, while you're doing something else, I can try to pull up the policy and the different pieces of it and see what would need to be created to do it. Or you could simply approve it and direct that someone publish the new policy consistent with your recommendations, and then someone will have to take the original policy, plug in the amendments, plug in this change, and then post it as your new policy.
Or we can take a step back and do this in our next meeting.
That's my
Yeah.
preference.
And that way we can.
We do it early on, so take masks, people who want to can take their masks off
6:36.
right away.
Right after the flood, don't even sit down. So why don't we just table that until July meeting to give everybody a chance to discuss this. Guy, you may do some wordsmithing on that, whatever, if you would please. And we can revisit this and agree to the first agreement to follow the guidelines of the Tompkins County Health Department. Because who knows where this is gonna go in November.
That's right, that's why we want to follow it. Right.
So I would like to bring up a quick thing that I had in my report, which was the issue at the previous planning board meeting in which we had the court running over until well after the planning board.
Are we okay with this one first?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're okay with this one first, okay, before we go on to that. I also have, I could talk about the
Yeah.
working session.
Yeah.
Before we're going to close session.
Okay, so may I say something first? This gentleman here was waiting because on our agenda it said a CWDX3
Oh,
extension. That's what he's waiting to hear about.
I did not understand that. So
I didn't either, sorry.
Well, that was on our agenda.
Was-
I thought I
Just-
did, I didn't realize he was waiting for that, so.
That's
I-
okay. I'd be perfectly happy to talk to Ed afterwards, let him summarize whatever happens. If
Well-
anything.
Well, we'll give you the advice of the Water Sewer Advisory. What it
And I would
was.
also concede that I forgot to wear my hearing aids and that the masks make it fairly difficult to follow everything anyway.
Okay,
I normally would wear a mask except I forgot to.
well, my apologies for keeping you this long. I through that. So I'll pull this out a little bit. So we'll jump into this. It appears as though that the cost of this district now has gone sky high. It's now 177% above the comptroller's threshold. And that's if you get the pipe. So the advice of the Water Sewer Advisory Board, let me get my notes here. And this is supposed to be a letter sent to the board, and I don't have it here, unfortunately. Is that the comptroller's threshold is $989. And the first year cost, when we do the amortization rates for 38 years, is $1,752. So it is the advice of the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Guy, I'm paraphrasing here. The advice of the Sewer and Water and Sewer Advisory Board is to go back to square one and start with new petitions, new areas. Maybe you have to do this piecemeal. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, because I've been working on this since about the first 3 months I got elected, and that was like over 6 years ago. And it's painful.
Information going out to people asking their opinion on, vote on it, would reflect higher costs considerably.
Well, and it's so high now, it goes over the threshold of the advice, and we don't even know if the comptroller will even allow this, being that's almost twice as much.
Okay.
And that's what this, there is no good news here. The only good news is that maybe to review this again and see if there's a lower cost someplace for people to, once again, take the petition. I mean, quite frankly, the old petition got lost when they first started this, when it was Tommy Sill passing it around, as I recall, and they lost it here. I said, that's not right. That's when I went out door to door. And everybody signed, then they had the vote. And then they had the pandemic. I mean, and then here we are. And now you can't even get, Mikey, you can't even get pipe. And I was supposed to bid on a job when your contingency is 10% of what the projected is. We don't know what the price of it is. We just saw what gas go up again. We don't know what the price of the pipe is. No one's going to bid on a job, number one. And if they are, when are they going to complete it?
Don't forget the cash on delivery, 4 pipe. Right?
Yeah, we can't even get 8-inch pipe now. So I'm sorry for 2.5 hours worth of waiting for 5 minutes of off.
Well, I mentioned to someone that I was on the school board for 6 years, so I'm used to long boring meetings.
This is a bit of nostalgia for you. Yeah.
So there will be, once again, to move into this, we're gonna ask the advice of the board now, because the advisory board has given the advice of town board that this will not survive the way it is now. To ask that we revisit this. And if people want to revisit this, they're gonna have to take the petition out, they're gonna have to get an estimate from the engineer, what it would be, and they say, okay, here's what it is. And it's sad, because all that money put forth, all the taxpayers absorb.
Yeah.
And I wish there was, like I said, I wish, I tried 6 years. I'm sorry that didn't go bear fruit yet. But don't give up hope. I mean, when I was on Franklin, it took us 3 tries in 10 years to get it through. And I don't have any other guy, you want to chime in on this at all? Well, he's all part of the water.
Well, I mean, the Water and Sewer Advisory Board came up with some conclusions and decided that it would issue an advisory opinion to the town board for the town board to make a decision upon. The information that was needed to write that advisory opinion was recently updated. Part 1 came in yesterday afternoon and part 2 came in last night. So not only is that advisory opinion not available for the Water and Sewer Advisory Board to make a final determination on and refer to this board, but there's not even a draft of it ready yet. So Ed is summarizing what the prior discussion of the Water and Sewer Advisory Board was and is probably likely to remain. But the fact is that the advisory opinion has not been referred to this board yet.
So we will get an official letter out to the town board for their advice at our next meeting and see where they want us to do, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, as the person who was supposed to draft the advisory letter, pretty much akin to what you saw for another district and a policy recommendation. The Water and Sewer Advisory Board had decided that they didn't need to formally approve it, but the final form of the same should be subject to the committee's review and edit and suggestion, because everybody was on the same page, but how you recall getting to that page may vary. So everybody's input was valuable, or at least deemed valuable. So it may be that it comes to the town board well in advance of the next meeting, but with the materials and literally several pages of them arriving last night, I just didn't have time to draft something up, get it edited and in final form, distributed to the Water and Sewer Advisory Board, approved, popped over to Deb for getting on this agenda so you could review it today. But to the extent that the matter was already on the agenda, I think Ed is giving you a preview of the reality of the numbers, because at 177% and the materials not even being available, we're dealing with 177% being the bottom end of the cost spectrum. Because I'm working on a very large project in a county to the north of us, and they estimate 3 to 4 years to get the amount of pipe they need. So the numbers, absent some miracle or a change in New York State's grant structure, probably aren't going to improve. So a different configuration and smaller bites on extending water districts might be a better solution than trying to figure out how to get 5 or 6 miles of pipe in one fell swoop, because it's not really all that feasible anymore, even disregarding the cost. But again, I have to get that data and put it into a report, and it'll come to the town board probably in the next week or so.
The other part of this dynamics are you get low pressure areas there. You can only go, for instance, Wilson Road. It's going to be coming from both ends. I mean, I got these things memorized, for God's sake. So they're going to come on Buck Road over to Wilson, come on Collin Road over to Wilson. They're going to put them together, right, out in the middle of Wilson, and put a shutoff valve there because the pressure is so low. And then from there, they're going to spread out. Well, once again, if even with Guy's magical pen, he could get the comptroller to say yes, way above the threshold. If with that exuberant cost, you can't get the materials, and you can't even guarantee what they are.
You've already pretty much conveyed the bottom line.
Well-
I need to detail it too much more. I'll suggest to her that she ought to think seriously about digging that well deeper.
And I thank you for being so gracious. Thank you. So we covered that.
All
No,
right.
we actually saw we got to
Sorry to interrupt what you were gonna.
No, I appreciate you saying that because I'm so concerned people
that's-
are sitting here that
Yeah.
I want, usually in the other meetings I have, I usually bring them first.
Well, he shared that with me when we had the break.
Ah,
So I thought it would be the first thing that we talked about when we came back. So I said, well, we've waited this long, we might just as well wait, that's what we're gonna talk about, so.
Or not.
I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah,
because
thanks.
It's important that we, consider his time too. I would like to talk about the court session running over, and making the planning board and 20 members of the public stand in the hallway till about 6:40, until they moved into the smaller room. And I'm not sure how that happened, but how can we make sure that doesn't happen again?
Well, let me share some stuff with you. I had a phone call about this. And it was a perfect storm,
Mhm.
basically. You had, and let's be clear about this too. This is a courtroom.
Mhm.
So you know who gets preference. And I'm simply saying that. I understand that they're also, of all the meetings, for this to have to happen, right? Of all the meetings not to have the YouTube ready, right? Of all the meetings, this wasn't just a subdivision they're gonna do, right? Of all the meetings, you can't make this up. So anyway, they had run over a little bit here, and having talked to John Howell and talked to Melody about this, and to Deb, how we get this on the calendars next time, so we're all together on the same page, right? And the other thing is that everyone's starting to come back. And to Judge Kenny Smith's credit, she moved over into the small courtroom to continue that, whatever they were doing, right, as they continued this on that. Yes, and it was 10 minutes wait, and they're all, you could tell, the beehive was buzzing,
The
right?
last planning board meeting wouldn't have been a big deal.
And so we've come up with an arrangement, I believe, because one thing Debbie mentioned is that, okay, whoever reserves a spot, we put their name next to it, so if there's a conflict, they call that person. So for instance, if Debbie's gonna schedule something here in the court, they'll say, okay, Debbie, we have a conflict, and they contact that person. So they're all aware of this. And John and I have talked about this, and it's, 1 every 10 years it'll happen. Of course, it had to happen this way. And they're already chomping at the bit coming in, right? And here they are. And I understand, I love that passion. I respect that. I wish more people would be more informed with the truth.
It was a kind crowd. It wasn't an angry crowd. There
No,
was-
they were somewhat confused also, because they're saying, what's going on here, right? Of course. And I think they made the adjustment. I actually got reached out, what do we do, because there's no YouTube, so talked to John called Pat, who called Owen comes up here, what should I do? And I go this, I did this, and turn it on. And then the birds were singing a little bit nicer 20 minutes later, and the sun was a little brighter, but people were very concerned because they wanted to hear all this stuff.
Can we get written instructions so that someone else can, so we don't have to drag Owen in to say, oh, these are the buttons you turn on and off to have it work?
Well, what happened, go ahead.
I don't want to speak right now. I'm sorry, but
Okay.
I will not say the right thing, so I'm not gonna speak.
Okay, so anyways, it was the perfect storm in the opposite direction.
Right.
Now, how you do in the future, I don't know. I think the first thing we do is verify that the room has not been taken up, because quite frankly, the courts are starting to come back.
Right.
And it wasn't unheard of in the past that, now this was a Monday, it was Tuesday?
Just a
Monday, so this was like a special arrangement or something's going on.
It was a special case, yeah.
So keep in mind that the ZBA may also have to, because,
ZBA is now meeting in the community.
okay, so that's already been rectified.
Yep, that's been dealt with. Yep.
That's been dealt with. That was also discussed, is that
To be in the
because-
library.
Because what's happening now also is that when the courts are, they're longer because of the tsunami of evictions and everything else going on right now. So what used to be a short session, especially for Judge Candy Smith, but she does it in the evening where Judge Howell does in the afternoon on Thursdays, they're now getting longer.
Right.
So that's why they moved over to the community center.
To the community room in the library.
The
That's where
library.
the
thank
ZBA is
you,
gonna
for the
be,
ZBA.
yeah.
And that's happened in the past. They've had big adjustments. So personally, I think we covered the bases. For someone to know which button to push, I don't know if, I guess, Joe, if they want to teach you or somebody.
Well, I might not be here for the ZBA meeting that wants to be, I think we need to have some kind of instructions that, so that we don't always have to call Pat and say, Pat, come turn the button for us and,
Well, I think that was once again, 1 out of 1,000 times.
Yeah,
Yeah, CJ and I have communicated, and so this week I just came in and made sure everything was set for them, ready to go. All they had to do was flick the switch and that was it. So,
Yeah, and in all fairness to CJ, she's been very accommodating. Trying to say, okay, let's just find out moving forward, what's the best plan, okay? So I hope that covers it for now.
well, if these meetings move over to the community center, we can't live stream, correct?
Talk
nah,
about the ZBA.
Any meeting.
Right, but
Let's say-
if the
let's say
planning board had
planning
to
board
host a
goes
room.
over there, we wouldn't be able to live stream it. What would it take to make that building able to live stream?
several $1,000s. And
Are you
I'm talking,
2 or 3 or 10 or 12?
I'm talking probably 20.
Okay.
All right then.
Are
And,
these also on tape?
and then probably if you're able to get the equipment, that's the other.
Oh, by the way,
Oh, by the way, and then if you're able to get somebody to install the equipment, which is,
and are these also taped?
what is it?
If they're over at the library, are they on tape at least?
Can we
No,
take them
not
to the
that I know.
community center and put them on YouTube later?
So here's the other thought, I'm gonna be old
Was it
school.
yesterday?
Yes, you could theoretically record them and then we could upload them later. Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the other thought I had, I'm gonna be old school. If they're really that important, you need to get in the car, and then you get in the building. If they're really that important.
I disagree. I think that live streaming,
Okay.
I think live streaming has opened up our meetings to a larger section of the town as opposed to the section.
Well, I can tell you right now, Joe, I just checked this a couple minutes ago,
Well,
but there
but-
was zero.
But what I think, yes.
Zero
what I think
watching.
It does is it allows people who can't watch it now. I mean, I don't think.
Yes,
Not
yes.
a million people are watching these things, but like, oh, I missed that meeting. I wanted to see what was happening.
Correct. You
That's
can,
what these
yes,
are.
you can
Yeah.
always go back and view it.
Well, we had a conflict this time, and that's why I'm thinking that's a possibility. I've gone back when I couldn't catch a planning board meeting and watched the planning board meeting after the fact because I had a conflict and I could sit and watch it and, keep up with it. So I think the YouTube videos serve a very.
Right, Mikey?
Yeah,
Right now, there's one, and it's me.
but people watch them afterwards, myself included.
Yes, I do agree with that. Yes.
And don't they have minutes also?
Minutes are not the same as listening to us jabber. Your monologues don't make it into minutes.
Yeah. All right, can we move on?
I just want to make one statement about the,
I'm out of here at 9:30.
yeah, I just want to make one very fast statement about the conflict with the courts.
Yeah.
Everyone was well aware of the time frame of what everything was happening. The problem was that the court did not think that that was going to last very long. They thought it would be 15 or 20
Quick in and
minutes.
out.
There should not have been any conflict. Things didn't go quite as smoothly in court, so it went over. That's really what happened.
Yes,
That makes sense.
I just want to make sure that we've figured out how to avoid that as best we can. Because like Ed said, it was the worst meeting.
I agree with that.
All right. So now we need to move into closed session, executive session.
I can't even find my page. So are we going to closed or executive or both or?
I think both. I'd
We need to
like,
do
I'd
each.
like to get advice from our lawyer about some issues.
So
And
which,
Ed wants something.
so which one are you going to first?
No, I'm gonna wait till July. Well, no, I'm not. Yes, to me, it's about a purchase of a piece of property.
Okay, so are you going, which one are you going to?
Let's do
first?
executive first.
Okay,
It'll be quick.
I'll love it. I'm done.
Mine will. I don't know about the rest.
Okay, so under executive session to discuss, number 3, proposed acquisitions, sale, lease, okay?
Yeah, and both you can stay, actually. please.
You say both, and I see 3 other people on the, screen here.
I'm sorry. Yes, so,
So who's making the motion to go in? Andrew, okay. And,
I'll second it.
okay, and it's,
We may get this motion done before Andrew has to leave.
I'm right behind you. I'm right behind you.
okay, so just so y'all know, you're going to executive discussion to discuss proposed acquisition, sale, lease, real property, blah, blah, blah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, real quick.
Wait,
wait,
wow,
wait,
no, you gotta
whoa,
move.
I
whoa.
mean,
Hold
unless
on.
you want it to be not.
CJ, can you
executive
take that
session.
down, please?
Yeah, hold on just a moment, just a moment.
I want CJ